She walks it loud like a thunderstorm, debunking myths with style and form. True crime, conspiracies her game. Melissa Jade, remember her name. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Microphone fierce like a roaring lion, unveiling secrets people been hiding. True crime queen of the digital scene, Melissa's got you hooked on her screen. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Murders to cover-ups, nothing misses. Melissa's here to share her guesses. She's got theories big and bold, no stone unturned, no case cold. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. From murders to cover-ups, nothing misses. Melissa's here to share her guesses. She's got theories big and bold, no stone unturned, no case cold. She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame. 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 She's loud, feisty, spilling tea, diving deep into mystery, breaking down your wildest claims. Melissa Jade, she's got no shame.
Hello, everybody. Happy Members Only Monday, which I almost forgot. It was Members Only Monday because we had this scheduled for yesterday. But now it's officially Members Only Monday. And I appreciate you have always been. I will check Shite Show because I had just checked them all right like a couple hours ago and I sent out all the gifted memberships. So I will go back and check because it's titled Patreon Chicken. I will check before I even get off this live. Thank you, poor Linda, for 11 months. This is the best channel and chat on YouTube, which is such an amazing compliment. And thank you, Justin, for gifting a membership and Jack for gifting memberships. That's awesome. Such a lovely way to start the live off. Welcome to all of our new members. And hello, Shay Benet.
Hello, everybody.
Mouthful, right? That was a mouthful way to start the live.
Just roll with it.
I know. Oh no! I hope you feel better, Carolyn Cooper. Dude, I remember you and I both had this. We had. Did you have the? I don't think you had the norovirus. I think you had the regular virus, right?
Yes.
Or the flu, and then I had the norovirus, and it hit my whole family, and that shit's no joke.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I did not have that. I was just told that like we had a virus and it wasn't noro. It was just is what it was, and it sucked.
Viruses suck. I remember back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I mean when I was like a kid. It was like 24 hours, max 48 hours, and then it was done. These viruses hit differently.
Oh yeah, they do. It's like a knockout for like days.
Yeah. Jack trying to buy bagels. Yes. Hi, Holly. Hi, C. Carter. Dude, this is gonna. I've been waiting for this live, and I am so anxious, and I am so excited. And I don't like to use the word excited because we're talking about something so sensitive and so horrific. But when you're getting answers for a case that you've been following from day one, and it's been so tight-lipped and the gag order, to finally get answers is exciting. To finally get, some answers to your speculations and your theories and to really understand what took place is it's exhilarating in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Liquor.
I get what you mean though. It's like I don't know if it's like excitement, but there's really no other way to explain it. It's an anxious feeling, like wanting those answers.
Yes, it is. It's very anxious. Clicker says, love to my members only Monday friends as I drive home for a long day. Do you know that I won't ever? Sometimes because it limits you how long you can make a title. The same way, if you look at my title tonight, it's cut short like case against just Kohberger, not the case against Bryan Kohberger, because I will not title it mom, like shorten members only Monday to mom, because I don't like, it's not aesthetically pleasing to my eye. Does that make sense? Like, I do not like the way mom looks in my title. So I will always put members only Monday, even if I have to cut it short everywhere else.
Well, it's also lingo that like people being around would know for a while, but
Yeah,
not new people. So they'd be
not
like,
new
"What's mom
people.
doing here?"
Yeah. Oh, we haven't cheated either, poor Linda. But like I've heard little bits and pieces, and I'm like, knock that off. Be quiet. Don't tell me nothing because I haven't listened and I haven't read yet. But what we think we're gonna do, because me and Jay were just chatting for a minute backstage. There's almost a 2-hour interview with Steve Goncalves, and there is a lot apparently discussed in that interview. But we also have new filings. We think we're going to pause on the filings and do that later in the week and skip right to the interview because it's a lot. I don't really want to I want to hear it all. And it's going to take up the entire live. So we're going to, how many, put a 1 in the chat if you have already listened to this interview. It says, I waited too because I've been in a Karen Reed rabbit hole. That everyone's in a Karen Reed rabbit hole.
Shoot, that's where I stay right now.
You cheated a little. Everyone is in the Karen hole. Oh, the
I
Karen.
tried to get you in the carrot hole with me, and
I missed the first hole. How do you jump into the second hole?
you just jump in. You just jump right in, girl.
I need context though.
Oh, ATS and I get you caught up. So can Deets. Deets follows it as well. Gavel,
Oh.
chasing.
I jumped to show. Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Even if it's not something you cover, it's worth the follow.
Yeah, but how can you follow it if you didn't follow the first?
I mean, there's a lot of people who stepped into 2.0 that started just kind of watching like the first trial and don't really know a lot of the background.
I feel like I can. And thank you so much. I'm sorry I passed it. Unsilent Bob for becoming a member. I love that. Okay, so let me grab this. This is our missing child for tonight's live stream. Tequila Lachey Evans, who has been missing since March 19th, 2025, out of, I don't know if that's pronounced Decatur or
Decatur. Decatur.
I knew. All right, there we go. Decatur, Georgia. She is 13 years old. We have associated children. We have Ariana, Anila. Is that Anila? And Tequila were last seen on March 19, 2025. So here's Ariana, who is 15 years old.
Oh.
Ariana Demi Brown. And then
Demi.
Oh God. I'm really doing the most tonight. I've been live for 5 minutes? Oh wow. All right. And then we have Anila Desiree Cody.
Good job. Yeah, you got that one.
I gotta slow down a bit. Missing since March 19, 2025, again from Decatur, Georgia, who is 17 years old. I'm curious. I don't know if these are siblings because they all have different last names. I'm not sure. But if you or anyone who knows information on their whereabouts, please contact the DeKalb County Police Department at 1-404-294-2911. Okay, let me jump down. I know it's a lot of. Yeah. I don't know enough about it, but from the little bit that I've watched Point Oliver, there's some serious issues. What do you think, Shay?
I think Karen Reed's factually innocent.
Dun dun dun.
Yes.
So,
But I went into it very open-minded though, Melissa. I didn't really know how I felt about it. So it took going through the first trial for me to feel like more comfortable about where I stood.
right. See, you need to have both. That's what I'm telling you. Gotta have that context. All
I
right.
am really looking forward to this interview.
So am I. So this interview is on the Drunk Turkey Show. The link for the Drunk Turkey Show is in the description. Like, they're tagged in the description, so you could go over, and I will drop their link. And so this is Daniel, and he has Steve Goncalves on, which is Kaylee's father. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar. I feel like Steve is the most in the media and in the forefront regarding the victims' families. And so, do we know if this wasn't live, right? This was pre-recorded?
Right. So it's pre-recorded, and Steve also apparently offers some context from like this an excerpt that I read, that he had done this pre-recorded interview, and then they sent this to his lawyer for his lawyer to validate what could be put out to the public. So they did make sure that it followed within the guidelines.
Woo! And thank you so much, MK. Congratulations. Welcome our new members. I am really, yes, this is a new interview. It's a few days old. I'm really eager because things have gone quiet. Like, things went quiet for a while compared to the coverage and every channel covering this after Bryan waived his right for a speedy trial. And I think things simmer down. Now we're very close to this highly anticipated trial. And we have this interview, and it's the first time I could think of, right? Like, I know that Steve has gone on mainstream media a couple times, but like, as far as an actual sit-down interview on a social media, I can't think of any recently.
He was, him and Chrissy did go on the interview room whenever they were discussing the house being taken down.
Yes.
So they did do a short kind of, little guest appearance on there on the interview room together.
Okay.
And that was about a year ago, I think.
So I'm so excited. We're going to get into it. We're going to review it, pause, commentate. Like I said, their link is in the description. I will drop the link also in the chat throughout it. As soon as I start playing this, you might not be able to hear it, Shay, but if you guys down in the chat, if it sounds staticky at all, let me know and I'll just share it full screen, but I won't know because it never sounds that way for me. Hi, Jenny. All right, so let's just jump right on into it. You have any idea how hard it was for me and Shay not to watch this? Oh my gosh.
Steve Goncalves, the father of Kaylee Goncalves. How are you doing, my man? How's it going?
Doing good. It's been a good day. I just got off being on call, so it's nice to get my schedule back. And it's a good day. And almost summer here in North Idaho. Weather's looking nice, so it's nice. It's nice, and I got good news today. So it's a good day.
I thought he had the chapter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's it. Sounds good.
It's on the live.
Texas, it's getting warm, and
So he posted a video of this, and the live has the chapters.
I thought the live was the Q&A.
The live has the Q&A at the end, which makes it longer, but it was chaptered on the live. That's where
I shall go to that one.
Yeah.
Then I shall go to that one.
Sin just gifted 10 memberships.
Sin, thank you. That's so kind. Welcome. Happy Members Only Monday. And yes, I just did a horn. I feel so... I'm like just so exhausted that like my head's just loopy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just
I feel you.
Pardon me. Like, pardon my weirdness. Pardon if I mispronounce names. Like, it's just... it's just that time. And thank you so much, though, Sin. It's very kind. Okay, so I'm going to go through the intro. What's Steve G?
Welcome everybody. Steve Goncalves, the father of Kaylee Goncalves. How are you doing, my man? How's it going?
I'm doing good. It's been a good day. I just got off being on call, so it's nice to get my schedule back. And it's a good day. And
that's
almost summer here in North Idaho.
I've been excited. It's wrong. I've been liking what I've seen out of Judge Hippler. Not to say anything bad against Judge John Judge. It's just there's a different attitude, a different confidence, a different way of controlling the court. Have you noticed the difference? And I know you were a little bit against the move to Ada County. Do you feel the same way now?
You can have both things, right? You can be disappointed that the community that was hurt the most isn't the one that's able to see the justice. And I don't want to live in a country or a world where only our biggest societies are the ones that are able to orchestrate justice. You don't want to be in a situation where you have to be in a big city for you to be able to have the facilities and the resources to actually have justice. I think that's a bad message, and I'm still against that. But it is what it is. Madison County, they didn't have the resources. They couldn't get it done. It was nothing against Hippler, but
he means nothing against John Judge, but
right.
I really like Hippler. I
do
think
too.
It was the best thing for the case. But I understand what he's saying as far as it sucks not to have the community that was impacted get to see it. But they will. I understand what he's saying, but they will. And you'd rather do this and have a change of venue than down the line have an appeal. And let's say, he's convicted, you get justice down the line, an issue arising.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Harlot didn't peek either. Oh my God. All of us, I love it. I'm so happy.
Yay.
So happy. And that was a big ask to ask, hey, don't watch it. That's the last thing I said to her. Don't watch it without us. And she didn't. I love it.
But that courtroom was a fraction of the size of the one we're going to. It didn't even have an elevator. This one has an elevator of at least, I'm going to say 6 floors. I haven't been on all of them. I typically just go straight to Hippler's, which is on the 5th floor, and I get out there and go straight to his court. So security, all the different things that they have, there's a lot that goes into a case that gets the attention of the nation. So I was disappointed that we had to move it, but I believed in the leadership of the state of Idaho that they would go out and find somebody who was built for this case. And that's exactly what happened. They went and found somebody who was understood the struggles that we were going through. And we got a leader that could go in there and clarify and understood the law, could figure it out on the fly. And you see that all the time. Even presents logical arguments that I've been hoping somebody would, which just speeds the whole process up. Otherwise, you send everyone home, then they build the arguments, and then they come back and they say something that could have been spoken right then and there. So I'm definitely happy with Hippler, and I think he's more than fair. And things are moving. I feel like we went 2 years without anything happening. So I'm glad to be in a situation where this is an every day of my life. Hopefully we don't go past 3 years, and we get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I do not think this trial is getting pushed off. Judge Hippler is not playing. I think he is very aware of what the families are going through, while at the same time being extremely fair to make sure that Bryan's attorneys have enough time. And that's why he communicated that in the last hearing we watched. Hey, the last time we spoke and touched base, you told me you were good. You were good for this trial date. And you've taken on since another death penalty case. Yet now you're before me and we're this far out. Okay. And you're telling me you didn't have enough time to go through that it's scheduled for right now.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Agree. Absolutely.
One of the things that I've really thought that has made a big difference in this case is the transparency that's also been possessed through this case and now through Judge Hippler. And how do you feel about the transparency, the information that is now going through? This is a lot of information. We've had 911 calls, we've had text messages, we've had a lot of things that have come out recently that were sealed. As a family member of a victim, how do you see that information coming out, and how does it make you feel?
I'm not a fan of gag orders. When we first got one on us, we did a little research on them. We found out like the origins of them that we found in the United States went back to the 1800s, and they were used to basically silence the legal representation of unions. So when they started hiring lawyers with their fees and started to be able to have a lawyer tell them, hey, these mines that we're going into aren't safe. You know, the whole bird, canary in the gold mine, that goes back to these guys. They would go down there, and when the bird died, they ran. You know, that was their safety. So they hired lawyers, and then these lawyers started, you know, TV wasn't a thing. They went to the local newspaper and started saying and describing the conditions. And one of the legals of the time said, you need to shut him up. You got to shut those lawyers up. So they made a gag order. So they're not really, I'm not a fan of them. I don't like them at all. I think the truth coming from the court, the facts as they are, you know, you're still going to have jury members that decide what those ultimate facts are, but hiding information in the sake of thinking that you can control the narrative. Maybe when you had 3 news channels back in the day, you know, when I was a kid, you had like ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that was it. But those days are gone. I mean, you got these people that think he's innocent, and you got these people that think he's guilty, and there's every view in between. So you're not going to hear just one narrative. You're not going to hear 3 stations saying that he's guilty. And that was just one reason of a gag order, where they basically said that this individual couldn't get a fair trial. But like I said, the gag order goes back to suppressing a lot of truth. And I don't want to live in a country where we have to hide the truth as we know it, the facts that are found in an investigation. We have somebody who's been in jail for 3.5 years. You should have a lot of evidence, and society should agree that evidence is sound enough that we can keep these people off the streets. Otherwise, you release them on bail, you know? So I think our case, a lot of people try to say he's innocent until proven guilty. That's true. That's true in the most sense, the most generic way. But we do have a grand jury, and that grand jury did an indictment. And that indictment basically pulled him off the streets. So I remind my children that we don't have like an innocent person in jail that there is no evidence. We actually do have somebody in jail with a bunch of evidence. And if he doesn't have answers for that evidence, I believe the case is over.
Yeah, no, there's actually quite a bit of evidence against him that we know about. I'm sure there's even more we don't. You know, I think a lot of people look at the probable cause affidavit and say, hey, well, this has a lot of the information. And at the time, it probably did, but not so much anymore. I mean, the PCA was developed in probably 9 days from the moment that they, you know, got his name to the moment that they put him in handcuffs. And so a lot more time has gone since then. And, you know, well, let's kind of get back into it. Let's go to the beginning. A lot of people that struggle with that night. Why that night? And a lot of folks have struggled with, if this was a guy that was trying to commit the perfect crime, he would have noticed a new vehicle that was Kaylee's. Maybe he didn't know who it was. She had not been there for a while. A lot of people speculate that she'd moved out and there was nothing there anymore. Is that the case when it comes to what she was still living there or not?
Oh, glad these answers.
Our house.
Go ahead.
I'm glad he's going to answer this, because there's been a lot of questions about how much was she really staying there. So this is good.
Yep, this is a great question. And it's also a great point that, yes, that is very much a discussion, is why this night, why this house? Wouldn't it have been alerted because there's a new vehicle, right, that's parked there? He wouldn't have known whose vehicle that was. So how much was Kaylee actually there?
Mm-hmm.
So depending on who this person was after, he may have chosen the date because that she was there, because the previous 2 weeks she'd been at our home and had been taking care of stuff. People that don't know the area, that community, I think, gets around 90,000 when it's full in term between WSU and UI. But when they're out, it drops down to like 20,000 people. So what that means is, if you're a local and you're one of these kids being a barista or working on tips, the money's gone. It dries up. So they all get out of town once school's out. So, you know, she was up here, you know, hustling, doing, she can go back to her recent job. I know other kids, my son, Jack, they come up here and as long as you don't burn your employer, you give them a call and you can pick up a shift at any drop of a hat. And we don't have the seasonal flows out like they do, so they could come up here and make good money. So I don't think she was there that much. And he had stalked that place out 23 times, at least that we know of. We know he'd done more than that. There's some surveillance that shows that some of the days that he was there, he didn't have his phone on. You know,
Okay. Hold on.
Whoa.
So I know that we've heard this mentioned, right?
Yeah.
But what actual concrete evidence do they have that shows Bryan was there at least 23 times, right? Some of the times they had surveillance. Some of the times he didn't have his phone on him. They have him in the area on some type of CCTV, ring door. Like, what if he didn't have his phone on him? They have him on surveillance cams? Is that what it is?
Oh no, that's interesting. I'd like to know more.
That's super interesting. We don't know if he was frequenting her work. As far as we've heard, there has been no connection between Bryan and the victims. So yes, her car was posted on social media, but if there wasn't any connection with Bryan, it makes you wonder, how would he have known that? Like, if they can't pin it, and I'm not saying it's not going to come out, just as far as we know right now. Yeah, that's more than a coincidence. I told you, Amanda. You're welcome. Yeah, Sin got you, so congratulations, Wigasoda.
The people got hung up, and even myself, over the stalking. The stalking in Idaho is defined as a certain profile. He was definitely stalking, surveilling, whatever whatever definition you want. That he didn't have reasons to be in that location within 100 yards, and I can guarantee you they've checked his bank records and seen if he was actually shopping. Like he, like some people are just naive and stupid. They want to be stupid. They want to believe myths and fairy tales and be lied to. I don't have any time for those type of people. So yeah, we nailed down all these type of things. When we talk with the prosecution, we're just like, let's make sure that we've checked bank records. Let's make sure that we can define everything that this individual is doing when he was making these trips. And when you're talking about 23 trips, can a person make a perfect backstory every single time they're driving out there? Sure, some days you can go to Winco and pick up a 6-pack and some potato chips or milk or whatever, but it takes true discipline to do it every single time. And I know mistakes were made, and people think he was smart, and he it doesn't matter. The days of making a perfect crime, they're over. You can't do it. There's just too many sensories. I mean, every camera is a sensor. Every car on the road, every single year we get, there's more and more cars with cameras. You see all these morons that are, keying Teslas. What kind of idiot doesn't realize Teslas have cameras on 24/7? They don't even need the car to be turned on.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, but Shay, I've never even thought about that as a factor. Do they have him caught on other cars? What?
That would be interesting. Yeah, I have heard that cameras have 24/7, or the Teslas have 24/7 cameras.
I never knew that record even when the car is off.
Yep.
Yes, Megan. Yes, they are.
So when you see stuff like that, your days of making a crime and not being seen, they're over. And thank God for that, because maybe people can just get over it and treat each other good and stop trying to cut out corners and trying to, I mean, it's very rare that you get some individual who thinks he's got visions of grandeur so much that they think that they can decide when people live and die. I mean, that's a psychopath. That's somebody who's, or it's just got a death wish, and he wants to go out and be famous off of what his actions are rather than who he is. So I think you had that place, stepped out, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's seen something that night that made him decide that he had to do it. He had to build up. And I think there was multiple times he went there and he thought it was going to be the night. And he got frustrated because there was a party or there were some people there.
Ooh.
And he wasn't allowed to do it. So he made a rash decision. He rushed himself and he went and did it. And
that's interesting. He thought he thinks he went there one of those 23 times with the intention of it being the night, but for one factor or another, had to back out. And so it may have been impulsivity on this night in question. If he was trying to build up the courage, the circumstances weren't right, and that's why maybe mistakes were made more so than if he didn't do it, because
Right.
It's hard to think 23 times that when you finally do it, it would be impulsive. But if you think about it in the way of you keep going, and it's being that it's a party house, there's so many people. I'm sure that there were many times where you can't do it, Oh my God.
I mean, but you even had neighbors say that it was kind of a quiet night around that area that night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're typically partying.
Right. That's interesting. It may have been, I don't think it was his own, but it didn't clarify whose IDs.
Yeah, I'm curious about those IDs too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, he's not as smart as he thinks he is. None of us are as smart as we think we are. If we think we can get away with it, and a whole community's not going to be able to figure out that we're involved.
Yeah, 100%. You know, you mentioned the 23 times that he was around that place. You know, in the documents, it verifies or clarifies that on these occasions, these 23 times, that he was within 100 meters, and it was between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Not when majority of your shopping is done, and there's not a store within 100 meters of the victim's residence. You know, you also mentioned that maybe perhaps he was out there with his phone off. The documents only bring up to November 17th. You know, I don't know if you know or not, but you know, I think that if Kaylee was maybe perhaps the subject of you know, the target there, maybe there'd be some sort of correspondence there with the times that he was in the area with his phone off, but the nights that he was with his phone off was also the times that Kaylee may have been in town. You know, if those days correspond together, then that might be something that really points in that direction. Back early on, you'd mentioned that injuries didn't match. A lot of people have speculated what you meant by that, including myself. I still don't.
So, go ahead, Jay.
I think I knew what was about to come up based on this.
You want to explain what they're talking about, like a very early on interview?
Right. So, Steve did an interview with Fox News, and he's had a moment where he said the injuries just don't match. I brought home my daughter. I've seen it, and nobody really understood what the difference was. Some people have speculated that both Kaylee and Xana had defensive wounds, so maybe that's where the injuries didn't match. So we haven't really heard from them why they didn't match.
We're talking about 2 years ago.
Right, 2 years ago.
So now he's giving us some more clarification on what he meant 2 years ago when he said the injuries between the victims do not match. Unsilent Bob says, trigger warning. No spoilers, but there is some viewer discretion advised material coming up here so sickening will make you angry. So thank you for that warning. Welcome, Truth Exposed. Come on in.
And if you're just now coming in, like I mentioned earlier, I read a little excerpt that Steve got this interviewed okayed by his lawyer before Daniel with Drunk Turkey Show put it out. So this has already been reviewed by his legal team. So what he's saying is, according to them, not too much before people get upset.
Shay coming with context.
I think it's important to have that in mind. Like, he's not just speaking off the cuff.
Okay.
I know the answer. Would you mind explaining what you meant by that?
I'm careful with it because throughout this whole investigation, there were things that we found out on our own, and there was things that they shared with us, and that was one of the things that we kind of found out on our own. So I did share a little bit, and usually when I do share things, it's things that I didn't give my word that I wouldn't share it. It's hard to describe. I don't want to go too far down, but like how I said, we talked to Mabbit, and she basically said that they were in the bed together. They had passed away, but she's seen markings and damage.
So for those, Kathy Mabbit was the coroner, everybody. And what we found out in that Fox News episode special as well was that his young teenage daughter answered the phone when Kathy Mabbit called and asked to know what the injuries were. And we heard Kathy Mabbit was speaking to their teenage daughter and telling them about it.
Right. And we do not like her. Just personally, I'll speak for myself. Personally, I do not like her. What I heard about her giving details to a 17-year-old child about her sibling when she's not supposed to be doing that, highly inappropriate. I also didn't even like that she came right out immediately and gave an interview without having all the information, because there are things stated in that interview we know not to be true. So when he says Mabbit, he's talking about the coroner.
Kathy Mabbit, yeah.
We talked to Mabbit, and she basically said that they were in the bed together. They had passed away, but she's seen markings and damages that made her suspect that there was more to what had happened to them in that bedroom. So, I mean, I'll say he struck my daughter. You know, I'll give that out. He punched her, and you know, so for all those people who think he's a great guy, now he punched my daughter right in the face.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, he's got some shit coming to him. You know, we're coming for him. That's one thing that was a little bit different. There's more to it, but
so she would have had some type of injury to her face, which and he's specifically talking about Kaylee and Maddie, you guys, who was upstairs on the 3rd floor, in the same bed. Now, what we've heard, Maddie, what we know, Maddie was on the outside of the bed. Kaylee would have been pinned between Maddie and the wall, but Kaylee most likely was the second victim in that scenario. And she was found up against with her back against the wall, kind of slunched over, which would indicate she woke up, I don't know, during the initial attack and probably tried to get out, but she was trapped. But to find out she has markings on her face is really disturbing, you know, because as horrific as these injuries are, you want to believe that it was quick, you know, but to find out like that, it makes me remember Dylan's statements about the thumping and the thuds she was hearing upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Well, then we also have heard from some of the court documents that they were going to have a rebuttal expert on the intoxication levels of Maddie not being able to defend herself.
Right.
So they do believe she was highly intoxicated.
I believe Maddie was the first victim, until maybe I'll hear more that'll make me think Xana or Ethan, but I've always thought Maddie was the first and Kaylee was the second. And then he went down. But it's just so disturbing to be hearing more and more pieces to this. Hi, Samantha. But I do have a little concern, I will say off the bat. Any information that he didn't hear officially, even if it's from Kathy, privately off the record, I don't like that.
Only thing I could think of is if you've seen the autopsy photos and their investigators that they believe that, you know,
Right.
she would had those injuries.
Would he have seen the autopsy photos? I think he would get the autopsy report. I can't imagine he saw photos.
Well, he had to identify his daughter, so he had to go down there. Remember?
Yeah.
He's seen his daughter, for sure. They can't say that he's seen Maddie, and obviously probably not Xana or Ethan, but definitely believe he's seen his own daughter.
And you're really good to make like 2 minutes. Like if you want to jump back like 2 minutes, and then I think you're good. I don't think you need to go all the way back. Oh my God. Okay.
that's one thing that was a little bit different. There's more to it, but I'm gonna have to sit down with make sure that I don't say something that, you know, is gonna play into the case and tie anybody's hands.
Understood. Yeah, we definitely don't want to, you know, I don't mean any disrespect either by the question, and I hope it's not too much. You know, I've never wanted to ask yourself or anybody anything about the injuries or the severity. You know, my thoughts had always been that obviously there would have to be a first person that he'd attack, and we'd probably have more of a surprise, and then a second person that he might have to act a little bit more quickly. But it sounds like it could be even more than that. You know, which is it's the whole thing is sad, and I apologize, and I'm sorry for your loss. So, you know, you mentioned that law enforcement, they were open with you in the beginning, and then at a certain point they stopped. Was there ever a time when they may have told you that they believe that the person who committed this crime was outside of her circle, a stranger, so to speak?
Yeah, very early on they talked about they being the FBI. So we have an FBI satellite location right here in Coeur d'Alene. So we went down there and they laid out a profile for us. Said we wouldn't be surprised if this individual picked this community on purpose, because I guess they knew by the crime scene that this was a planned out event. There wasn't. They would know how something would look like if it's, you know, like a domestic violence type thing. It's going to look different than a crime where somebody sneaks in, gets to the people, kills them, and then gets out and doesn't leave a bunch of evidence, a bunch of blood trails out, and all that type of stuff. So early on, they said that they think that this individual picked this community, they wouldn't be surprised if he was on hugging the border of Washington. He was on the Washington side. There was I think a Lewis and Clark murder case that was 5 victims, and they never figured out who it was. So if this person was studying law, they may have known that this community had already had a serial killer come into their area, and then they got away with it. So that, and if this person wanted to go to a college and go get, education, then, he had 2 colleges to pick from. And he was also going to an area that didn't have a history of always catching their serial killer. So I think they had identified that 100%. And they went down some scenarios of like what this person would probably behave like, what they would do, what their profile was. And the thing is, between the FBI, the state police, and my own investigation and investigator, and just having a presence online with all these kids that could reach out to us and talk to us, we found out a lot of information pretty early on. And I think maybe law enforcement was scared to have somebody who was that in tune with what was going on. We knew about the chief before it ever came forward. We knew about the white car day one. They were like, they're looking for a white car. We didn't come out and tell anyone that because
Day one, they knew about the white car.
Probably from the
footage,
the neighbor's footage. That doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah,
there wasn't many cars speeding off away from the house at that time. Think about the neighbors. They were taking that camera.
But that's good to hear, though, for some people who believe that Bryan's being framed. Like, that car's been noted since day one as being possibly part of the crime,
But I feel like we knew that, especially with the motions, because it showed the emails, and didn't it show on the what day actually did that? Because it showed them going back and forth, and then changing it for the BOLA for being like the. But I don't remember the date. But that makes sense though. On the 13th, I don't like.
Yeah, it's not a bombshell. Yeah. It's not like I wouldn't expect it, but it's nice to hear it. You're right.
It's weird though to hear him say that. Like, they communicated, like they knew that to him. Like, ooh. I wish I had like a map up of like where visually all the cameras were, but we know that they took that neighbor camera, and they probably had that infamous still shot, right?
They had the 11-12 camera early on, because remember, that's how Olivia Goncalves explained that they were able to pinpoint the time that the girls were dropped off by their rideshare.
That is correct. You're right. Hi, Safira. Okay.
Day one. They were like, they're looking for a white car. We didn't come out and tell anyone that because we didn't want people flooding us with fake clues. That was one reason why we never even gave out some of the details on Kaylee, because we'd have people that say, oh, I know who did it, and this is how it went down. So then say, well, what happened to Kaylee? And they could never, obviously they couldn't tell us what those details were. So we were doing the same thing that officers do. You keep some exclusive information back so you can vet people that are trying to be a snitch or an informant, or they're trying to leverage, like, hey, I'm going to tell you this stuff about what this other guy did so I can get out of jail, or I can things like that. So we went through some of that, and but I think when we were accurate and we had that information, there was definitely, I know individuals looked us up and said, how are you guys coming to this info? How are you guys getting this stuff? And maybe it was just luck, maybe it was determination, and I feel like there was times I worked on this case 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we figured some stuff out, and that can definitely intimidate people, especially for a person who's, I told them right off the beginning, you're not going to gag me, you're not going to silence me. I'm not going to play a part in helping the person who killed my daughter. I'm going to do everything in my path to make sure that I play a role, that this guy is killed and held 100% accountable to the fullest extent of the law, directly because he chose my family.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. As a father myself, if I was really hoping, and I was in your situation,
I'd probably be in the same boat, my man. Doing everything I possibly can, having as much attention as I possibly can get before it turns into like some sort of cold case. Because I can fairly positively say that may have been a fear at one point that they weren't going to catch this guy.
Yeah, I mean, we all hear about the truck driver or the rambling guy who just comes through your town. You know how hard it is when somebody who's doesn't have any connections to your community, and this individual didn't have any community. He didn't have a history. He was just moved out there. So those are the hardest cases. I've become very obsessed with working with legislators over this, because I'm like, something long-standing that we can do to help these children. This happened to them is we can pass some laws that can help make it harder for somebody to come into our community and do something like this again. And one that's always been in the back of my mind, I've never worked on it, was just registering like truckers. If you're going to be an interstate trucker, you probably should have your fingerprints or something done into a system where
it's not a bad idea.
Just because there's just so much, it's impossible to ask a local police officer to investigate some guy who comes into your community for a couple hours and you're never going to see him again.
Yeah, 100%. The defense has brought up that they have a full of alternate suspects, and I know they have some blood on a handrail, and I know they have some other persons that they might look at. Maybe perhaps an incident that may or may not have occurred at Sigma Chi. I don't know if it did or didn't. Have you heard anything about that situation, or is that just all rumored?
It's all rumored. Yes. I mean, he was with his sister, man. These kids are so good. I mean, he was being his little date for his sister. I mean, wow. You see so many brothers and sisters
talking
fighting
about
and
Ethan.
stand each other, and these guys.
Yeah, they're talking about the Sigma Chi. I never pronounced it right. Sigma
Chi. Yeah.
Party. The night that technically the night before the murders happened, but that Saturday night. And there was a lot of rumors and speculations that a fight happened, like legit fight club happened. But that wouldn't make sense. Just bullshit rumors. I agree.
I do, and I remember he was this Maisie's date or whatever for her.
Mm-hmm.
For her event.
Yeah. Yeah, you see that, Sub Rosa?
I mean, I'll be honest with you, like even hearing just like Kaylee's injuries, I know any parent probably that, loses a child wants justice, eye for an eye, whatever it may be, but hearing the brutality of it, I can't blame Steve and them for how they feel.
There's nothing wrong with being pro-death penalty. There's nothing wrong with being anti-death penalty. Like, you're allowed to feel how you feel. So the fact that they're expressing their beliefs, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh.
Thanks, Rosa.
This sister, man, these kids are so good. I mean, he was being his little date for his sister. I mean, wow. You see so many brothers and sisters fighting, you can't stand each other, and these guys were she was inviting him over for like a dance to be around her brother. So it just goes to show how close these kids were. But yeah, I haven't heard no real any truth to any of that.
Another person that I think that the defense might look at it is Jack, and a lot of reason might be just because he was with the girls that night at the Corner Club. He was the person that was getting phone calls. A lot of people still suspect that those phone calls may have been somebody else. Without going into any details, because that's their business. But did you hear any voicemails, or was it just text messages? Was there like proof of life at the time when those voicemails or calls were done?
The phone stuff was investigated by Christy and Olivia, so I wasn't around when they actually got into those things. I seen some of the screen captures, but I'm trying to help people understand how we know for a fact that Jack's not involved. There is the whole cast went into that neighborhood, and people are going to understand that cast detail is though we didn't get some of the timing records, there's still a lot of information there that they did get, and Jack is one of the people where they did get the timing records, which lets you go within feet.
We knew that.
They knew when Jack's phone was moving when he was in his,
Yeah. And they got a lot of people's, and I don't think people realize how specific, just like he said, it goes within feet of where that phone is. That's how they pit. It's the same guy who testified at Chad Daybell's trial, and they were able to find Tylee and JJ based off Alex Cox's cast report.
Yep.
Said that she was a fight at the frat, but said it was just over a girl, sounded like the other guy. Used to have a crush on Xana. Ah. I don't think I've ever saw that. Did you ever see that? She was a friend of Xana's.
Ew, I don't know.
I don't know.
I have a really hard time like hearing from locals around the area on
Yeah.
this after all the trolls. Not to discredit if it's true.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, not only that his phone was, not only that his phone was disconnected from the network, but it was the wrong time too. It was disconnected from the network, and then the original time, what was it? What was the original time? They pulled the timing advance records from.
Wasn't it from 3 to 5?
Was
Thought
it
it was
3 to 5?
I thought it was 3 to 5.
So yeah, it wouldn't, either way, it was disconnected from the network. And so it wouldn't pick up. Why do I feel like there was something else though? Like,
Well, they did the drop for all the phones that were in the area, but
Yes.
specifically, obviously went and reserved Jack's timing advance records.
yeah.
They did the roommates, they did the people living in the home, and I don't know what other people that they may have gotten that extent of detail like they did with Jack and the roommates.
Yeah. Okay.
Records, there's still a lot of information there that they did get, and Jack is one of the people where they did get the timing records, which lets you go within feet. Mm-hmm. So they knew when Jack's phone was moving when he was in his bed sleeping and moving around, whether that was under his pillow or it was on his blankets or whatever moving around. So they have a absolute certainty where Jack was that night, and there's surveillance that was going on around there that lets them know. I mean, of course, he could sneak up in the attic and go through the crawl space. You could always, you could do these YouTube crazy scenarios where he got out of the house without triggering any of the surveillance that they had. But realistically, they know exactly where he was. Now, is he going to be an alternative suspect? Well, hopefully they don't put him through that. But if he does, he'll be coming into that courtroom with us right by his side. And he'll probably be staying over at our house at our Airbnb. So,
how's he doing?
Yeah, it's a waste of time, but she can only have certain kinds of suspects. The suspects have to play a part. They have to have some kind of evidence of being in that house. And a house with 6 different girls, there's going to be a lot of suspects. That qualifies a lot of people that could justifiably be in that home. So that's what she's going to do. But I go back to my Idaho community and some of the things that I've already heard grand jury members talk about and hear and speak, whether it was Plum or some of the other people that recorded some of the things they said. These guys aren't stupid. These women aren't stupid. They know a suspect when they see one. Yeah. I remember one of the greatest questions that one of them asked was, I think they said they asked the judge to verify if he ever had a fishing or a hunting license since he bought the K-bar, since it was delivered to his house. And he did. But that just goes to show that how intelligent these guys are. They're thinking it through. Like, what reason would a guy have if he's not in the military? These guys out here are outdoorsmen. They know why you would have one of those. The K-bar's a military weapon to fight other men. Really, that's what it's for. So you could be a moron and use it for filleting fish, but they wanted to rule that out. And maybe you're using it for hunting. You don't really know too much about hunting and the type of knives that most hunters use. But these guys are on top of it. And I think if he thinks he picked the right community, a bunch of dumb hillbillies, he's really in for a rude awakening.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yes.
How is Jack doing? Is Murphy? Is he with Murphy? Is Murphy with Jack?
Yeah, they go camping. They do a lot of outdoor stuff. From what he said to us, we're hoping to do some fishing trips out here. We're going to Montana. There's some lakes out that are pretty remote with some huge big old rainbow trout. So, nice. Yeah, we'll plan something. We'll do something with them this summer. And every year he's out there doing something in the mountains out on these. We call them logging roads. They're just dirt roads that take you out in the middle of nowhere and you can get away from it. I know he's going to be very stressed out. He's a very quiet kid. I mean, if you could look at somebody who would be like the least temperament to ever pull a crime like this off, it would be Jack. I mean, Jack is. Yeah. I mean, Kaylee, they've been dating for 8 years, I think, and she said he had never even raised his voice to her. He had never ever insulted her in any fashion. They'd broken up for a while, and she went out with another guy, and he was so rude to her, and she's like, basically being around this guy in an hour, he had insulted me more than Jack had in 8 years. So she was like, I might not ever find another Jack again. I mean, that was her exact words to her mom. So I have no worries that they'll do that. I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it'll go anywhere.
Yeah, well, let him know that his, he'll be in my thoughts and prayers as long as with you and your family as well. Now, Bryan Kohberger gets arrested. How did you find out about his arrest? And when did you find out about his arrest?
They called Xana Gray, our lawyer, right away, as soon as before us, and they probably gave him like a rundown of the situation and how much they could say, and some paperwork that came along with it in an email. And so then he called us and he shared with us and said, hey, they've arrested a guy. Here's his name. Here's his background. There's a message that I sent you guys with some PDFs, some I think it was the affidavit and a couple other little side notes on there. I mean, it might have been some of the stuff from Pennsylvania. I don't remember exactly, but that's how we heard. It went straight to Shannon, then Shannon to us, and then we heard from Karen, and we started kind of just, we were super excited just because the next day we had a celebration of life, and we basically prayed that this person would be caught and we wouldn't have to go through that celebration of life thinking that this creep would be trying to be there among us and try to blend in and get some kind of satisfaction by watching us all suffering.
I didn't know it was that much earlier before the celebration of life. I'm assuming the first thing that you're doing is researching this guy, and there's something called the Andrew Garrett discovery. Are you familiar with it?
Sure. Yeah.
And it sure does seem like you guys were on the same page as far as the possibility of a social media account potentially belonging to Bryan Kohberger, following some of the victims of your daughter and Maddie and Xana. Do you still feel that way, that that's the right profile and that there was some sort of following, at least on the internet, of some sort?
Yeah. It was kind of confusing at the very beginning, and I'm sure it was confusing for the investigators, because I went in there one day with my family, and we were like, what happened to the LinkedIn? Why were you guys into our account? Why did you remove it? And they looked at us like we were from another planet. Eyes bulged, and we could tell they were being completely honest. They were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. Well, we later on figured out and investigated and found out that it was the FBI. So there was 2 parallel investigations going on at the same time. So I think,
That's
and I've been told that the FBI wanted clearly.
That's what it seemed like, even down to the damn IGG. It seemed like there was 2 completely separate parallel investigations, and FBI was doing their thing, and local law enforcement was doing theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very interesting about, the Garrett discovery. Because this has been a big discussion, from the very beginning of Kohberger being arrested. Is that connection? Is there any overlapping connection, social media, anything? Because it's really hard for people to accept that Kohberger is the guy when there's no footprint at all that shows any overlap.
But what I think also just befuddles me is that there's been a lot of different crimes, of whether they're mass killings or serial killers, that haven't shown any connection to their victims either. But for some reason, it's a pain point for people to believe that Bryan's innocent.
You're right. I think it's the society we live in today, though, and the fact that there's 4 victims.
Right.
I think that's why it gives people pause, which I could understand, because when I found out there was no connection, as far as we know, I was like, and then you parallel that with no DNA in his car and stuff. Now, when I say all that, that doesn't mean that outweighs all of the circumstantial evidence pointing towards his guilt, versus I understand that that's like a big pill to swallow. Like, damn, like what's the likelihood of that?
Mm-hmm.
But if he was there 23 times, okay, did he find his victim by eye? Was he smart enough not to go online knowing the social media footprint it'll have?
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Lines. Like, you guys are going to be working on this stream of information. We're going to be working on this stream of information. And stalking was one of them. When I had to sit down meetings with those FBI agents, they talked about how it was a 20-year term that they could possibly get if, because I was worried that things, I thought at one particular time, maybe I could have the charges dropped on Kaylee and picked up at the federal level. And then there would be a fail-safe in case something happened at the state level, if any mistakes were made, if anything got thrown out. We were just trying to be that careful. And they basically let me know that they had an investigation that they could still pick up, even if something got messed up. This person was not going to walk free if somebody came out and, heaven forbid, got caught lying, or the Brady, or whatever the different things that can throw evidence out. There was still another investigation that they felt very confident in. That I remember one of the agents saying, "We're the FBI. Do you think that a mass murder of 4 would be released on a technicality?" And I was like, "I don't know." And they're like, "No. We've sealed. We've looked. We have evidence. This individual will never be free again. 100%. We have the right guy. There's no doubt in our minds, and we can have him at the state level. And we can have him at the federal level." So it built my confidence into sticking with the state level, and not. It would have been more expensive, and I literally was at the point where I was like, if it means that we don't ever, Kaylee doesn't ever go to court for her, thing, I would have been fine with that, just to have the backup, just to have the know that if something went wrong. But they were like, no need. This is, I've had individuals that do nothing but capital cases, 100%. That's all they do every single day of their lives. Say that this is the strongest case that they've ever worked on.
Whoa.
It sure does.
What? Sorry, but that's some confidence, man. And I do believe bombshells are going to come out in that courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty early on. Carolyn Cooper, do we know what day FBI came in?
Day 1.
Was it day 1?
I'm pretty sure, or at least day 2. Yeah, because they had ISP
maybe
there
day
day
2.
1.
Yeah. Day 1 or day 2, very, very early on, almost immediately.
They have those satellite offices close by, so they have them in quickly. Also, given they're right there on that state border, I would have presumed they would have brought them in, because you would need assistance looking at other states and getting their support.
It's crazy, man. And good night, Safira.
Good night.
It seemed like it. I mean, at this point, it sounds like they have pieced together his entire kill kit. From the mask to the knife to the sheath, the sharpener, the jumpsuit. I wouldn't be surprised if they found Van's shoes somewhere, and other types of shoes and booties.
Size 13, right?
Yeah, size 13. The judge mentioned something about a gift card as well. I thought that was interesting.
You know what it reminds me of? Oh, what was the name of that killer? He had he kept kill kits in the
Israel Keys.
Yes.
He dug his, and a lot of people believe Israel Keys has a larger number of victims, but because he took his own life, that they never got a lot of answers. But he did.
Thinking of that. Yeah,
I learned about him actually because one of his victims came all the way to Texas.
Really?
Yes, it was. There was some traction in Texas, but even that alone, just hearing about the incidents in Alaska with the coffee stand and the girl that he took from there, it was just awful.
I know. There's footage of that.
Yes.
And Nav, that's kind of like the big question here of what we're trying to figure out is, it seems like, and this case comes with a lot of different sides, like a lot of different beliefs, but the main consensus is he was a criminology, major. He seemed to have been studying this field for a long time, and it appears like and this is not proven yet, but based on what we know, made the decision to commit the crime prior to even knowing the victims yet. Before he moved to Washington, he had bought the murder weapon. Being that there's no overlap that we know of a social media footprint, a digital footprint that shows him maybe monitoring the victims, stalking the victims in that sense. We question, right? Was the house targeted? Was a specific victim targeted? Like, how does this come into play? But it seems like he had made the decision to kill before he even knew who he was going to kill. And welcome, Mary Beth. But that'll change depending on who you ask. Everyone has different opinions on it, but based on what we know so far, that is what it appears to be.
Maybe at some point we can watch the interview that Forensic Frenzy had with Andrew Garrett. I know she still kept that up on her page, but I've watched that several times because you and I, when we first looked at that social media report, we were like, what and how did this come about? And I thought it was interesting that Daniel brought it up to Steve. So Steve's very well aware of it.
Oh, do you, Clicker? It's an interesting case. Yeah. Oh, I agree, Pointer Lover. I agree. Yeah, she said total lack of DNA because we debated that for a long time. Does total lack mean none at all? Because lacking of means less than sufficient, right? Less than what you would want. So we had gone back because she did wordplay. But we will find out. But here it is. It was a month and a half later that he was actually arrested. We know he was cleaning his car. It makes you question. But again, it seems like he planned this methodically. I would not be surprised if he didn't go to great measures to protect specifically from transferring of the DNA.
Oh, wow. So there's that. Yeah, it is tough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow, Clicker. That's crazy.
As far as the purchase goes, to me, if he did use a gift card, that just shows that he was trying to hide the purchase. And not very well, because he still got it delivered to his house by name. But when you mentioned the FBI, I thought this case could have easily gone to the FBI, given the fact that a lot of that kill kit was purchased in Pennsylvania. He traveled to Washington. If he was doing some following online, one could perceive that some of that following may have been done in Washington. He crossed state lines to go and park at their residence, and for at least on one night for over an hour, between 10 to 4 a.m. Those are all pretty big signs that this could have gone to federal. But they went through the state, and from based on what you're telling me, it sounds like they got a strong case against them.
Yeah, one of the reasons that you can make it a federal case is if you conspired. If you're sitting there and you're doing things online, I think I'd have to go back and review the actual provision, but it talks about if you're committing a crime and you're using a computer to do the crime. And that K-bar being ordered there means that he's got premeditation and he started planning it back there and then went and committed it in another state and then relocated to another state from the origins of the crime and then jumped over to Idaho. So I definitely think it could have qualified for a federal case. And I think they would have. I think there was really a close battle and there was some back and forth on who was going to take this case over. But there was so much evidence that they were like, let's just let them, it is an Idaho thing, let them have it. And I know one thing that they told me was, don't expect a death penalty if it goes federal.
Oh, got you. Yeah, that makes a big difference there.
Yeah, and I 100% wanted the death penalty.
Welcome, Pickle.
So that was one of the biggest reasons why we kept
Good to see you again, Pickle.
There you go. That makes the biggest difference there for me as well. Kind of going back to that night, there's video of a vehicle that's traveling around. There's also a video from another place on Linda Lane that captures also some traveling around. Early on, there was a lot of speculation. Some people still point at this, that they can hear things throughout earlier portions of the night. I'm not sure if you have or not, but if you heard any of the audio that may be closer to the victims' homes, do you hear any of those such things? Or do you think there may be some sort of play with the audio on some of those footages?
I know the backstory where that Linda Lane came from, and it was a money grab. It was literally, I know the exact person that went and purchased this thing. And
the Linda Lane. I know the exact person who went and purchased this thing.
We did a lot of research on that.
We did more digging on that than you guys. I have so much data in my phone or storage that was used on that damn Linda Lane hunt. And I'm really curious who purchased that, or to find the full story out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so they tried to get me to release it or discuss it or bring it up in one of the interviews that I was doing, you know, and it get me to echo some of the things that were on it. So I had some people look at it themselves, and they were like, it's either been the audio has been manipulated, or it's so poor quality that they didn't have any confidence in it. And some of the things that are the times don't match up to the times that I know my daughter was moving and doing and sending taxes and all these different things. So, and plus we had the 1112, I think that is the other surveillance that basically we could hear a lot clearer during the exact same times. So anyone who thinks that they're breaking a case over these cameras and whatever they're hearing, it's kind of naive. It's not.
Thank you. It is so nice. I cannot tell you how much the Linda Lane blew up. Okay. And people to this day are going crazy about this is what you could hear. Look at these people walk. This was a college town on a Saturday night. And Linda Lane, it's an apartment buildings, guys. Why would you expect if a group of kids are walking by that it wouldn't be loud, but you can hear what you want to hear when it's not distinct and you really can't clearly understand what's being said. If you are told, listen for this, you will hear it. Have you never done the experiment where it's like, listen to this word? Okay, what do you hear? I hear banana. And then all of a sudden, clear as day, you hear banana. Oh shit. How did I never hear banana before? And then it's like, okay, well, no, I hear doctor. And you're like, doctor, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden, no shit, you start to hear doctor. It's like, is the dress blue or what was the blue or gold?
Yeah.
It's an actual thing.
I remember people coming out saying they're saying Charlie. Who's Charlie? But
yeah,
I think what we ended up doing, Melissa, was we just went to the times of the affidavit about the 3-point turns, and that's kind of the way we approached it, because it was like, it's a never-ending rabbit hole. You can hear whatever you want to hear.
Yep, and it's called pareidolia. That is correct, Justin. And so instead of taking the PCA and knowing that time was off, that time was not accurate, if in the actual motion that we just had read not that long ago, it explained this camera, this was how many seconds it's off. This camera, this is 2 minutes off. You know, it detailed even precisely, which it should. And so my point is, it wasn't even the right time, but like literally all you could hear in that was like, and people took it and this is what you hear. You don't hear anything, but it to this day, like I have heard so many crazy speculations surrounding that Linda Lane footage. It's mind blowing. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Angel. You remember? Yeah, it was torture. I know. I saw both a white and gold dress. See, good night, skadoosh. Yes, you saw the carpool. That's what it was showing. It was accurate to what we know. Just the time was off, but now we know for a fact the time was off. I hope.
Naive to think that you heard something and everybody's going to
throw
this investigation off and not overlook something that you found is so amazing. This true crime stuff is it's an eye opener. It sucks to have your daughter's murder be like some form of somebody's like entertainment, and they like to go out there and stir up their followers and make narratives that are more like for novels than real life. So it's terrible, and I don't know what I'm going to do if I ever cross one of these people.
Yeah,
I've thought to myself, do I just go to jail? And do I just? But it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard,
Yeah.
And that's not most of them. There's only a few that are like that. I mean, most people are trying to be honest, and like you are, and you have been. And it does, and I don't even expect you to always be right. We haven't been right every time either.
Yeah,
so, I just expect people to be honorable and don't purposely spin a narrative that know in the back of your mind is false.
Yeah.
You just hope that your users never, cross the same information that you found. You go suppress certain things to keep your narrative alive longer.
Yep.
I'm almost positive that there's people doing that because I've seen other people make comments that said, hey, this happened at this time. This doesn't follow your scenario. And then they just strike that, Nothing's been deleted, they delete it after some months. So it tells me that this person isn't after the truth. They're just after rallying up their followers.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen that. I've seen that in a few different cases where in different ones too, where this mob just kind of gets out of control, which is one of the things that I really try to go up against here on this channel, is to put out there what's correct and accurate versus, and to combat those that are trying to manipulate what is put out there. There's been literally a situation where there was a scenario with the DNA in this case where they were talking about how it doubled up. And the way it was explained to me was as if you had like an audio where you wanted to play an MP4 and an MP3, you had to change it. And so now you have the MP3 and the MP4, but they're both the same thing. And yet on these Kohberger channels, they just hear that it doubled it, they hit the pause button. They don't go into the explanation of why it is. And they leave a huge piece of context out. And that's what we tried to add on here, is that context, to make sure that everybody understands exactly what's going on. You brought up something interesting. You brought up the 1112 King Road video. Without going into too many details, because I don't want to violate any gag order, but when you have the opportunity to maybe view it or not, is there a distinct time difference between the DoorDasher? Do you see a DoorDash vehicle? And is that vehicle different than the white vehicle that is suspected to be Bryan Kohberger's?
What I seen, yes, it's a different vehicle. The times line up with what the courts have specified. I often wonder if that vehicle crosses paths with the white Elantra. It looks to line up to where they possibly do, and that just make the case even that much stronger. Especially now, I don't the age of that car. I don't know if it would have a camera, and I don't know what.
Okay.
I've never done Uber Eats or any of those type of things, so I don't know what the rules are if you have to have a.
No, you don't.
Some way of tracking your vehicle, but
tracking, yes.
Yeah, they're things. There's certain cameras that are a lot better at detailing what's going on, and they've triangulated all of the cameras together, so they're not relying on just one. And the timing that they do between when it hits one and then goes to another, then they can tell you the speed that it was doing. So
yes, and this is, let me be clear, because that's exactly what they did. We read that, okay?
Right.
We read those documents. But this is what Anne's actually arguing and saying, because it's not one continuous feed, there's no way to prove. So she's only acknowledging on this one camera, yeah, it's my client, but it's not one continuous live feed. So you can't, because the other quality cameras, you can't prove, I guess it's him, like by the license plate or something. But here's the thing. They did detail exactly each camera, the path of travel, the times, the anticipated time it would hit that next camera, how long it took to get to that next camera, and then things like Kohberger's vehicle traveling behind a truck. And in the next feed, 2 minutes exactly when you would expect to see it hit the next camera, because of his path of travel, you see that truck and there's that car, his car following right behind. So can you say 100% that that's the same vehicle? No, but everything triangulates, everything fits perfectly, and you're able to prove that is his vehicle following the truck in this camera. What would make you think that's not his vehicle following the truck in that camera? You know, like, it's just, but they have this down to precise, I don't know what to call it. Like, they have it completely mapped down perfect. You can put it in dash cam as far as I know, unless you change it, because I used to do Uber on the side years ago, and that was Uber, and that had people in your car, so I would assume it's a little bit more liability wise versus just food in the car. There was no requirement to have a camera, a dash cam, but the phone, the app itself tracks you, you know, so that of course you could track where the driver is or where your food is. But as far as a camera, that was never a necessity unless they changed it. But we may have the DoorDash driver be a key witness as passing the vehicle. Did they see anyone? Did they see something? Do they remember passing the vehicle? What rate of speed? You know, like, we may have them crossing paths, which we always speculated was a possibility. So Nav, everything is gag order. That's why having any information coming out is so massive.
Do they have an interrogation of KB available?
I think he means BK.
Yeah, that wouldn't be released.
They do have a gag order, though.
Yeah.
between when it hits one and then goes to another. Then they can tell you the speed that it was doing. So that white car was all over that crime scene. The person had their phone off, which we knew very early on with those FBI saying that we're almost looking more for someone who turned their phone off during these times. That was more of a red flag to them.
So the
than
FBI's
having the phone
profile.
on. Now, most of the phones, of course, they're going to go through all those people in that area and look for out of area numbers. So if those girls, their numbers weren't as interesting as if somebody that was from, let's say, Montana went through there, that had not shown up ever on all the previous dumps that they weren't just dumping that day. They were putting together all those things. So they were looking for outsiders, and they were also looking for somebody who had turned their phone off. Because what do college students never do? They never turn their phones off. Right. They never turn them off. I mean, they put them on a charger next to their bed. Why would your phone go off? And
I never turn my phone off.
I used to have the exact term on this, but some of the Garretts, some of the people that I've spoken with, Shadow Dragon, there's a hard close. Don't quote me if that's the exact word it is. I have to go look at my records. But there's a way that they can identify when a phone's been turned off and how it's been turned off.
Ooh.
And they can even tell you if the battery life, what it is. So when this moron turned off his phone, hard turned it off with 90-some plus battery life, and he's sitting in his car driving around. People, you're fools if you think that this is just all coincidence. Here's another coincidence that they're going to be checking on. So, how many stargazing apps do you got on that phone? How many you got on there, Bo? Because I don't think you got any. And believe it or not, those are actually pretty popular apps.
They are. They are. Listen.
What if they didn't have any? Oh my God, I would die.
How many stargazing apps you got, bro? I highly doubt you have any, and that is true. You can absolutely by the app follow what's the star position tonight, when I'm going to be able to see it most, like what can I look for? If you look at this direction from this place, this is what you'll see. How many you got of those, bro?
You're right.
Oh, that's so funny.
So the amount of detail that these investigators have done, it's impressive. I mean, these are great, hardworking men. They shouldn't be attacked. They shouldn't be pulled into these conspiracies and all this stuff. I mean, a little bit goes with the job, but this case, I feel like it's taking it to another level. And I just don't think it's fair. I think it's foolish to think that you got Moscow in on some kind of conspiracy, and then you got Washington State, and then you got Idaho State, and then you got the federal. They're all working together. I mean, at what point is it just get so ridiculous? But maybe this is what Hollywood's done, is just poison people's minds to where they every movie you watch has a flip and something happens at the very end, and that's what people are expecting in this case, because it's just so obvious. There's so much evidence pointing to one guy. They think that there has to be this curvature, some special ending, but this is real life people, and they got the right person. And there was a time where I was trying to be very open about who it was, but they laid it out in a way that still hasn't came out. There's stuff that is going to literally blow people's mind. Like this jury is going to be like the first one, an hour and a half, and go get him, indict him. He's done. Oh, yeah. So people who think that these guys are going to be like sitting for hours stressing out on what argument Anne had. Anne is so desperate right now. It's a joke. She's so desperate that she's using the work that me and my family put together to get all those clues. We did those interviews so all these people would call, and if you see something, say something, and that led to a massive amount of tips. And she's going through all those. She's going through all that stuff, trying to find out somebody that can fit the profile of somebody she can say is an alternative suspect. But
that's exactly. I think Anne is great at what she does, but I think it's very evident from that last hearing. The last two, she's getting desperate. Word salad ain't working anymore, Shay. Judge Hippler ain't entertaining it the way that Judge John Judge did.
No.
And now that we're approaching closer to trial, like this is this isn't gonna fly any longer. Yeah, she's it was very obvious, and the way that it had to come down to, you're an officer of the court, and the things in this affidavit from your expert could get everyone in this room disbarred. make sure if you're going to put something like that down, they at least acknowledge a 7-day retention period. Oh, like that, it got serious in there. It really did.
Correct, Nav Theo. It's a pre-record. Reason it was sent to attorneys to make sure nothing violates the gag order.
The families are bound by the gag order. And it's been a tight gag order. I think she knew. I think she just saw a window of opportunity that got closed shortly after she saw that window, but still followed through, trying to squeeze through it. Me too, KDP. Yeah, I think it was just a general, like, it's interesting that he specifically said Tesla, but I like, maybe it will fall through to be something, but I think what he's saying is there's even down to cars like that, maybe dash cam, maybe it was recording that got something.
Yeah.
Yes, Samantha. Which we all anticipated. It always made sense for it to be moved.
Thank God Idaho has rules. So otherwise we'd probably be 4 weeks of her just rambling off just nonsense and just trying to overwhelm the jury with just waste of time. And I still suspect that, but we won't be playing a part of that. And we're a different kind of family. She can say something in court, and then I'll get out of that courtroom and I'll rebut it. So
I'll rebut
I'm
it.
not here to help her have an easier case. Once that jury's secured in that room, there's nothing I can say on the camera that could ever reach to them. At that point, I'm letting it all out. Everything's coming out, and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting because there's no holds bars at that point. We can once that jury's been selected, picked, and put into a chamber where they're not going to be watching the media, then
Yep.
I mean, there's also concern. They're just making up stories like we wore. I never wore anything. None of the G's ever wore any of that. That's why we went back and said, go find it. Find some proof. And of course, they backed off of that because they went and checked the cameras. There was no. Yeah. But when I leave, I'll put on anything I want. And my family.
That's right. Even down to the family wearing things that are taunting him with the death penalty. And they're allowed to.
They didn't wear it in the courtroom.
Right. Not in the courtroom. Oh, absolutely. She already has been, Nav. She already has been, but she's being limited more and more now. She is going for an alibi defense that, as of now, is not going to happen unless she produces by, I don't remember the specific date, but unless she produces within a reasonable time for the state to prepare against whatever alibi they put forth.
I think it's in mid-May whenever they start pretrial hearings.
Yeah, you're right. And same with alternative perpetrator. Now all of a sudden we have someone that just suddenly popped up, but at the beginning of the hearing said we don't have an alternative perpetrator. So she's trying, but that's her job. That's her job as long as she doesn't cross the line. But there's been like 2 times now where I'm like, too far, and I don't like that, including the Syrai affidavit.
Oh, poor Linda. They will not.
Oh, God, no. Oh, no.
I think they're still trying to decide if they want it to be something where people aren't involved and it's like a machine so it doesn't live on people's conscience. It sounds like Idaho is really kind of trying to figure out the best mechanism for that.
Mm-hmm.
Put on anything they want, and they're not going to control that. So, like I said, we're going to be a family that makes this individual look back and think, if there was one big mistake I made was going after a G, because those guys didn't stop. They just kept coming. And how much easier would have my life been if I didn't have to turn on the TV and only see that guy pointing out what I did.
100%. As an IT guy, apparently he puts his phone in a VPN when he turns it on at 4:48. What does that tell you? What is a VPN for those that don't know, and what is somebody trying to accomplish with that?
VPN protects some of your identifiers. And normally on a PC, it's just mainly your IP. They're not nearly what people think they are. So what you could do is,
Steve is a tech guy.
You're really tough. It's really hard to do this with a cell phone, because a cell phone. Here's the problem with the cell phone is the towers won't communicate with you until you prove that you have a contract to use their services. So what that means is when your phone comes up, goes through a boot order, and it goes out and says, hey, this is my unique identifiers. I'm this person. I'm on AT&T. I'm on Sprint, whatever it is. I got a vial contract, and this it's a certificate on that device says I want to use your tower, and it works. And then you put on a VPN, but that's already told the tower that you're there. Whereas a computer, you can have a VPN start before your internet starts. And then you can go out your internet and totally remain hidden.
Thanks, Angel.
And so you look like you look like your ISP's number at that point, and you don't look like the house address. You're being able to hide your house address and look like the internet provider's address, but you can't do that on a cell phone. So this guy wasn't that smart. I mean, especially when it comes to IT. If he thought he could come out here and teach us, which we're all like ex-Californians, and people worked at like San Francisco and San Diego. I work with some brilliant individuals, MIT, all over. He was a moron. What he could have did, which we were trying to rule out,
He's a moron.
is if he had another phone and he tethered this one. So if he would have shared his Wi-Fi here and put VPN on there and then took this phone and then tethered it to that phone, he would have made it very, very difficult for them to track down. And then on this phone that doesn't have a cellular provider, doesn't have any contracts, took pictures, did all this stuff on that, we had to rule that out.
Yeah.
And that was a scary moment to think that, we could have had somebody that was truly a cloud forensic smart individual. This guy was just a stupid kid that thought he could have his moment out here with what I think you were talking about, like these rural police officers.
Rural, yeah.
Yeah, like these guys don't know what's coming. I'm this new East Coast kid that understands all this stuff, and I'm gonna show them how to use all this stuff. Yeah. The computer stuff is gonna do him in just as much as that DNA is.
Yeah, I agree. Early on, you had mentioned once that his phone may have touched the Wi-Fi. Is that accurate, or was that something that maybe?
Yeah, right. Don't tell him that.
Because I haven't seen that in any document, and I'm curious about that.
Well, I was reading a certain document where it was talking about, I believe it was IEME ID, and those are associated with MAC tables. And I do know some stuff that's not public, and they were trying to get a hold of some of the records on the router. I may have just misread what I said, because it would have came out by now. The same people who make these lies up, and I'm like, well, where's your warrants? If some other person's involved, where are these warrants at? There's some guy out there that they hear on that Linda Lane. Probably shouldn't say his name just because he's probably sitting in jail wondering why people are even talking about him. I think Farley or some shit. Yeah. So that guy, come on, give me a break, guys. Give me a break.
Yeah.
It doesn't match up. It's a waste of time.
Who's
It sure is. It sure is.
Who that?
Farley?
Farley?
Yeah, it was somebody. There was like other people were saying that he committed the crime.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought he meant a creator. I'm like, who that?
Overall, I think I strongly suspect they got the right guy. I mean, at this point, their only argument is that the DNA or the sheath was planted. I don't even think they're arguing the DNA is his. One of these recent documents, they reference how much DNA was found, and when I Google searched it, it's a large amount of DNA that was found on that knife sheet, on the knife sheet. I think it's going to do him in. I don't think he has very many arguments left. I know right now he's throwing out autism and a bunch of other things. Some folks are thinking maybe he's trying to come up with something to push a plea deal. Have you heard of any type of plea deal? And do you think they would ask you first if they were going to go down that road?
By law, they have to. Idaho law, not federal law. We're building. Old Thompson, he was like a Santa Claus. I think Thompson's skin's gotten tougher, and I think he's gotten a little bit more fighter spirit. And I think seeing us battle with going through all the things that we've gone out with, there's stuff that people don't know. People like vandalizing, people showing up at our house, people posting pictures of our address, all this stuff. And I think he thought, if they're gonna go through this, then I'm gonna do the will of the victims. And but I don't know if his heart was always in it. 100%. It's hard. Nobody really wants to murder.
No, there's not a law that they have to offer a plea deal. There's a law that they have to contact the families and let them know.
Right.
And Bill Thompson has stood firm that they are not offering a plea deal. And I do think, and I did not think Anne at all was trying to get a plea deal for the longest time. But more recently, I'm thinking that she wants at least the option to be offered.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Making trouble, making issue, like just fighting not that she wouldn't be fighting everything along the way. It's just the vibe I'm getting where she's things aren't flying anymore.
Right.
You're welcome, Ollie.
Go through a murder case and have to end somebody else's life. None of us want to do this, and we were forced to do this. We were forced into this behavior. We didn't want nothing to do with this loser. I mean, this guy was literally 27 years old, living with his parents. He's a complete loser. It's absolutely frustrating that my daughter got murdered by a complete loser. She's graduating a year early on the dean's list. Nobody else is graduating a year early in that around her. She was a rock star, and this loser ends up sneaking in and killing her. So the least he can do is pay the ultimate price. And I think I've said this before in the past. Maybe the reason we have these school shooters and maybe we have these mass killings is because we never force people, especially youth, that see somebody like Bryan, and there's all these fan clubs and stuff, and think, well, I'm that loser too. And the idea of me being on TV and the world talking about me, and I'm getting these suits and I'm getting vegan meals and I'm up on there and girls are sending me letters and people are putting money on my books. All of a sudden I'm somebody. And there's these confused kids that think being a killer somebody's better than being a nobody that I am doing nothing. And that's sad and that's terrible. And they need more parent, interactions and fathers. And I would ask them to go join sports or find a family, and if a family can be a football team, a baseball team, a basketball team, it could be a church, it could be a lot of other things, but don't think that it's all, girls and all that stuff. Matter of fact, one of the laws we're working on is once this individual has been charged, you put money on his books and we'll be taking that money.
Yes. Because look at like Wade Wilson and stuff. Like, it's an insane amount of money. Give it to the victims' families.
Right.
You don't get to have that. You don't get to just have extra money on your books to make your time more accommodating. Say it with your full chest, Steve.
Yep. And after you've gone through all the Wade Wilson stuff, gosh, jeez.
Yeah, you like it. That's exactly what needs to happen.
To pay for his prosecution and to help victims and mothers and people with counseling and other things. So go ahead and send money now, but once he's convicted, he'll never see $1 again.
Yeah, I don't. That's the way it should be. He obviously he's not convicted yet, but once he is convicted of this crime, there's a saying, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. And it's for a reason, and it's more than just sitting behind bars. I mean, it's the punishment that's behind it as well.
Oh yeah, Andrea.
Another thing about the death row is what people don't, maybe they do know, I never knew. It's 23 and 1. So you're locked down 23 hours and you get 1 hour out. So you can't go and enroll in colleges. You can't pursue higher education. You can't go and have dreams of, motivating other people to do what you did. This individual's sick. He studied crime. He studied the BTK killer. His professor was literally orchestrated a private session with him where she got private interviews so she could make a book, an exclusive book, and then she split the profits with him. So then he could use that money to flex in prison and buy cigarettes and buy power and buy influence in there. And we're not going to let that happen. That ain't going to happen in Idaho, and that's not going to happen to him. But that means we got to work with legislators and we got to find like-minded people.
I believe that, so, ATS.
Truly care about the community and put out the message that, this person picked
I agree,
to do this in, and we've done everything to make sure that we don't attract this type of behavior ever again.
Yes, sir. Well, if you need any help from me putting out any word or petitions or any of those type of things, you got it.
I like your shirt. Your shirt's right on the same page,
Yeah.
Firing Squad. You see that Firing Squad? We'll probably have a shirt for that, on these press days that we're in court when we get out of the courtroom. But yeah, that chair they put you in, shit gets real when you get in that chair. I'm sure when they strap you into that bad boy.
100%. And I don't think it's going to be that long of a trial. I know that they're anticipating. I think they said 3 months, but at the end of it, I know there's a lot of evidence. I don't think the defense is going to have much to fight back, to be honest with you. I mean, at this point, their biggest argument is a partial alibi over an hour before the murders happened. And in an area where it's not exculpatory for him to continue to just turn down that road that heads to Sunshine. And it gets him right there in front of Floyd's Cannabis Shop before 302 again. That's what they're working with, and if that's what they have, it shouldn't be very long.
Oh, the statistics of this case are just incredible. So, people who say that this is just circumstantial evidence, they're not talking to professionals, because I'm talking to professionals, and they say that there's direct evidence all over this case. This case is, like I said, this individual does nothing but capital cases, and this is the most I've ever seen. And I live by that. We will show that. So, DM, that's direct evidence. DM's testimony, and people think, oh well, whoopie-doo-dah, they're bushy eyebrows, and it's a white guy who's skinny. Well, do you realize, people, that they've run the stats on this? A guy at that age, the category, I think they went to like 30 to I think like 19 or 18, and said, what percentage is male? And so you remove, and in college town, there's more girls going to college than there is males. So then that dropped it in, like, let's say 46. And then they said, okay, white. Then that dropped it lower. And then they said lean. That was the one that got my attention. 70% of people in that age category are overweight.
Wow.
So now you got an individual who, as eyewitnesses there, that literally like 2 out of 10 meet that qualification of white guy that's lean.
Yeah.
And he has a white car, and he's out there, and for some reason he doesn't have an alibi. That's the part that gets me, is these Kohbergers that are just brain dead. Like, he doesn't have an alibi. You know how many times Ann has begged him to give her an alibi? He won't give it because he doesn't have one, and he's never going to have one. The dude did it. It's that simple. And thank God we have a law that basically makes somebody come out and say, hey, if you plan on saying you were somewhere else, then you need to, like, give the defense a chance to verify that. Because what if you say you were XYZ person? Well, they need to go interview that person and verify it.
Yeah.
You know, Thompson spotted up multiple times. You can't hide your evidence and then drop it the very last minute and then say,
Right.
haha, you didn't get to go find out that this isn't true. This person doesn't live in the state anymore. They're over in another country. You can't just drop this. So he doesn't have an alibi, people. I mean, what? Come on. Who's out at 2:50ish, turns their phone off, looking around on stars when it was foggy and it was icy and it starts to snow?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. I mean, and yeah, they know exactly all about that park. We've talked to the person that worked at that park. Yeah, there's cameras at that park.
What?
We'll see. And like I said, ain't got no freaking.
There's cameras at that park?
Wababai Park.
Whoa. Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
great.
Okay.
And yeah, they know exactly all about that park. We've talked to the person that worked at that park. Yeah, there's cameras at that park.
But they never said, I know I was at Wababai Park. I can't tell you exactly when or what I was doing. If they have cameras.
Oh, wow.
And they're able to show he wasn't there, even if he was there earlier on or later.
Wow.
Oh, Lord.
Don't be suspicious.
Don't be suspicious.
We'll see. And like I said, ain't got no freaking star apps that, like, you can point your camera up there and record them and it'll tell you exactly, identify those stars.
Yep.
This guy's done, man. He's done. He's completely done in so many ways. That's just frustrating that there's even channels that can play these people.
Can I just say something though?
Mm-hmm.
And in one hand, I'll say overconfidence. I don't want anyone to, like, I wouldn't want for the family to feel overconfident and let their, something go different. You never know, right? But at the same time, I'm so happy that it appears that he's confident, because I couldn't imagine going in and having this, because there was for a period of time there that it seemed like they were not confident, hoping, but not confident. But it seems like even with all of the crazy things that are being put out left and right, it's rolling right off of him. And I'm so happy, because clearly he knows more than we do. And thank goodness, because it's just a horrific situation, and I couldn't imagine just that what if, which is always going to be there. But he seems very confident with what he knows.
Yeah.
I noticed they're getting less and less. Hitler is cleared things up, and that's just by exposing the truth. But there's more, and it's going to get But I thought when these Kohberger delusional self-identifying, that's what really gets down to me is I think some people identify as a Kohberger. They identify as somebody who does a little blow and hangs out and is a little misfit and nobody likes them. And there's all these really popular people out there and they have it coming to them, man, because they never really understood how special they were. And I think it's more of a reflection of them than it is the case, because the case is so strong that I thought when that Amazon order went to his door and he's deleting his history and his own family is like, what the heck is going on with our brother? Our brother's like losing his mind. That they would.
Ooh. You hear that?
Can you rewind that part?
Yes, I agree.
Amazon order went to his door and he's deleting his history and his own family is like, what the heck is going on with our brother? Our brother's like losing his mind.
Our brother. What the heck is going on with our brother? Our brother is losing his mind. Sister. We've heard about this from the beginning. Sisters. Caught.
Yes.
Kohberger, Bryan acting in an erratic way. There is something going on there. And I'm telling you, I have a feeling. Because I listened to the wording during that hearing and how Kohberger's family wants to be here and they want to support parents. Okay. But we know that they may be called to testify. And I think the sister, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be after they came in and took him out, that she just communicated observing something. But I think they started to do a little search of their own before they arrested Bryan.
Mm-hmm. And Truth brings up a good point too. In their career, they're both mandatory reporters.
Yes. Well, and exactly, Pickle. That Amazon search was for a specific time frame, and they got it. How the hell did they know to look for that? The sister.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Very interesting.
And his own family is like, what the heck is going on with our brother? Our brother's like losing his mind. That they would jump ship, and some did, but
right?
There's still people who just can overlook, no alibi, the murder weapon's in his house, in his possession. He doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't have any of the items associated. Yeah, and this Dickies outfit, people, they've gone to the actual stores and looked up the inventory, exactly what is in those things. Exactly. And there's only a certain amount. For those who don't know, Pullman and Moscow are very, very small towns. So your Dickies selection is like this big. It's that big. Maybe a little bit bigger than that, but not much. It's not like a Dickies that you see in the city where there's all these things. There's Dickie boots and all. There's very slim things that this individual could have bought. And it's like a monkey suit, like a suit you put on where you're changing oil and the oil could literally pour off of you.
Right.
So, yeah, that's why they're not fighting the fingernails and all that stuff. And it was one of the reasons why we were a little frustrated early on, like where we were like, why don't we say, if you see somebody with a scratch on their face and, you see something, like say something. We got all this media. We could do it. And those are the type. That's probably part of the reason why they share certain things with us. Is they're like, this guy, we don't want him to go on there and say something like that because it's not relevant. Because this person literally had a Dickies outfit on, was covered head to toe, had a mask with his eyes. You couldn't even scratch the guy. You couldn't even scratch. It's like a paper he wrote. It's like the guy wrote about his own crime. I mean, these people. It just blows my mind. He writes about his own crime. He interviews individuals and investigates them to figure out how he can incorporate that into his crime. We had people write us letters that were like, I was one of the people that was interviewed, and he was obsessed with how I was picking my victims. He was picking victims. This guy said, I told him I picked my victims after they called 911 or their neighbors called 911 on them for a noise complaint, and the husband or the boyfriend was hauled off to jail.
What?
That is the oh wow. Ooh. So for anyone who doesn't know, for his what was it, dissertation paper?
Well, apparently, but that questionnaire didn't post until after it was turned in.
Right. But he had basically posted a questionnaire of if you're someone who commits crimes, right? How do you choose your victims? Like, what's the sensations that you feel during committing crimes? Very eerie, which, again, when you're in the criminology field, okay. But when you're thinking of it applying to a potential quadruple homicide and the killer, very eerie.
Oh, it gives me chills.
Then he would go and he goes, there's certain neighborhoods where they had money. Then I would go in there because I knew the mail wasn't there. And he said, and Bryan called him back repeatedly. And he said, I got a sense that he was really enjoying my stories and how I was telling passed out. And he went into those and was just like, he really liked my story. He liked that. And then I started wondering what
living vicariously through the other person's crimes.
Wow. I can't believe people contacted them.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, see, Carter, you have to, I'm telling you, this is going to be such a massive trial. So massive. You have to watch it.
Yes, yes.
Well, who was calling 911 on these kids? Especially in the daytime, in the middle of the day. They're next to a stadium, a football stadium. How do you get a noise complaint in a college town in the daytime? So,
Wait.
maybe you're trying to figure out how long it takes them to show up.
He's speculating that Kohberger may have called the noise complaint, the infamous noise complaint, to see how long it took for them to respond.
That's interesting.
Interesting. I wonder if it's based off anything versus just speculation himself there.
Yeah, that is an interesting theory. Very interesting.
Well, now that we know he was talking specifically to someone regarding his crimes and the noise complaints is how he did it. And all of a sudden you start to realize that, oh, your daughter had the noise complaint to that house midday in a college. It does make you go, huh.
Wow.
Daytime. So maybe you're trying to figure out how long it takes them to show up. I don't know.
Or what kind of response happens afterwards? Like if who leaves, who stays? Do they come back? If you were to call 911 while there's a party, does everybody not come back? Is that what you need to do?
And if you get a warning that if we come back here, we're going to find you. Somebody's going to jail.
Yeah.
Might be a time where you want to sneak in or do a little surveillance around that house, because that might be the time where you want to go in there, because the last thing they want to do is pick up and call 911.
It was awfully quiet that night. And I think that a lot of that had to do with, one, there was other parties in other places in town, but two, there was also I guess, minors in possession of alcohol and, deterrent going on. There was the stop there by the van field by undercover officers in the area trying to stop underage drinking and loud noises. I often wondered if Kohberger was aware of that going on that night, and if maybe that's why that led to one of the reasons why, because he knew that there would be some sort of enforcement out that night that would prevent loud parties or a party in that neighborhood.
Yeah. We have somebody who was working in a department that was in charge of all those programs.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, I think where your mind's going is a logical conclusion of what the behavior footprint that this person's done. And believe me, they've analyzed this footprint. I mean, somebody who goes through the exercise of doing a survey in Reddit, and if you go look at the times, the guy had already graduated.
Yeah.
And it wasn't used in his graduation, his final.
Thesis.
Yeah, his thesis, his final. So, I'd be shocked if this individual didn't know a lot of what was going on from the police standpoint on both sides of that state, Washington and Idaho. And I think that scared some of the local police departments, and I mean, you read one of them and where they're like, thank God, we didn't hire this guy. It would have been that much uglier if that email that came out saying that he tried to apply for that job when he first came up, but he eventually would have got part of that program. I've been told that program is a requirement for graduation for the PhD. So,
interesting.
He was in tune with what those guys were doing.
Yes, but I mean, it sounded like he applied in the spring because of that email that came out. Maybe it was just a reference to what was coming out, but the document, the PCA, references a essay that he wrote in the fall when he applied. And so I thought that if he was applying again in the fall, that meant that he didn't get the job in the spring, given his background, being a former person who was addicted to heroin and perhaps some of the things that may have happened to him at other schools, or even his job as a security officer may have prevented him from passing a background check. I was concerned that he may never became well, not concerned. I was glad that he probably wasn't ever going to be a police officer. But that's interesting.
I think he had visions of himself being that. Whether they would have, maybe he doesn't slip through the cracks. I understood that he slipped through some cracks already because of COVID.
Yeah.
Some of the background checks were not done because of the COVID stuff going on. I have no proof that that's true or not. It's just insiders that told me what was going on during that time. Certain labs were closed because of COVID. Campuses were not all open. I know that for a fact. So I would like to think that they would have caught him.
Yeah, I think the professor that recommended him to the PhD program said that he had actually never met, or she'd never met Bryan Kohberger in person. Everything was online.
Wow.
That was the person that actually recommended him.
Is that Ramsey?
No, it was a different Bolger, I think it was her last name.
I don't know anything about that individual. That's interesting.
Yeah, she's the one who recommended him to the PhD program. She said that he was one of two students to recommend that she's ever recommended. And that he was very bright and brilliant, etc., but that she never met him in person, that it was during online courses due to COVID and everything else that was going on during that time.
Well, that makes a lot more sense because he creeped out every girl that actually got around him. I just got a call yesterday from a girl that I was asking permission to use her name to investigate one of the reports that she put in after this all went down. She said she hadn't heard much afterwards. So yeah, there's a lot of women that's why they're like trying to make this whole ASD. I heard that came from his mama who went and dug through his old records because these medical records aren't back in the 90s and the early 2000s. They weren't. There was no EMS, electronic medical record system back then that is still actively. Now you got cancer or something like that. Your records are probably going to still be out there. But if you got a broken finger or something in 2001, don't be surprised if you go to a doctor visit and they can't pull that record out. But I understood that somebody went and found some of his old records and tried to convince the defense that they could use those to make an excuse for his odd behavior, because there's going to be student after student after student that are going to just talk about how they had a running tally on this guy and all the weirdness,
the Bryan tally,
the inappropriate behavior that this guy
wow.
had. I mean, he'd barely been there and he was getting kicked out in a university where that is super rare, guys. You don't.
And this is specifically what Anne is trying to get thrown out as autistic behavior, ASD diagnosis and characteristics. So anytime anyone mentioned he was creepy, anytime, you're talking about the social interactions, the long stares that he may do at girls, out, because it's all ASD characteristics. Apparently, if he has this long history, I'm curious who's going to be called as witnesses.
Me too. And I also have to say this whole interview is enlightening. I think Daniel did a great job, and I'm glad we're actually listening to all of it instead of picking pieces, because he's saying so much throughout it,
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on his mom going to get that childhood diagnosis?
Doesn't surprise me at all. And honestly, Shay, I can't judge her for it.
No, I can't either. I can't say I wouldn't do the same.
Yeah, I won't judge her off that. That's a mom at that point trying to save her kid's life. I don't blame her at all. That that's not synonymous, in my opinion, with condoning or being okay with what's going on, versus at that point I see a mom who carried that baby, birthed that baby, that's her baby, and fighting to try to at least save him from the fucking firing squad. Yeah, I could sympathize with that.
Yeah.
It's just, and this is, it's a multifaceted, we don't hear and talk a lot about the perpetrator's family, and they are victims too. For the most part, they didn't know, they didn't choose to have their child, and it people struggle to sympathize with, obviously more so than the victims' families, but at the end of the day, that's a mom and her child, and I will always, my heart will go out, because I couldn't imagine.
Right.
But that doesn't surprise me at all, because she would be the only one who knows, because again, it wasn't something that he would have pursued, would have gotten treatment for. It was literally, preschool going into kindergarten. He had the same evaluation all of our kids have, about to head into like grade school, maybe got an IEP, which I'm curious if he had it all. And they here's documentation, which she must have, I don't know if she really held on to that or she would have had to get school. I don't know how she would have gotten that. That shows he held a pencil this way, like crazy.
Well, she was. Well, wasn't she a tutor and her dad was a janitor at the school, so they could have access to stuff like
Interesting.
that.
Yeah, team mom all day. That's all. As a mom, I feel like we can all empathize. I don't know if it would be empathize, but we could sympathize as moms.
I mean, I've always had, compassion for his family. I mean, it's not something like they picked and choose, obviously, to happen. I think it's scary for them.
Oh, absolutely. I could imagine it's a whole separate. Think about BTK's daughter, and I think she does an amazing job at getting a good understanding of what it's like to be the family of a killer, and especially like a killer who's taken multiple lives. Like, it's a rough process.
Yeah, and she's still in pursuit of finding more victims of her father's. I mean, she is an advocate of her own. I really like her. I actually talked to her quite a bit during the Delphi trial. I think
you did.
Yeah.
Oh, well, cool.
Yeah, I really like her.
Yeah, she's admirable. She's admirable. It cannot be easy, but I think more awareness needs to be around that.
Absolutely. But this was really hard on her whenever she found out the connection with her dad and the professor and Bryan, like that. I've heard some of her interviews that she's done, and it tore my heart out because she's thinking like, God, I really hope my dad didn't influence this guy,
Excuse me. And it appears to be, it would have been, because it mentions 4, so he would have been preschool going into kindergarten age, and it appears to be a school evaluation. And yeah, you're right. So there's that. What were you gonna say?
Oh, nothing. I was just like, yep.
Barely been there, and he was getting kicked out. And in a university where that is super rare, guys. You don't just go into universities and see people getting fired. It's almost unheard. So this guy was setting off alarms all over the place. And this individual said that she made a police report and she wanted me to find out if they had found anything out on it.
A police?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more police reports and more reports, as you mentioned, against him and about his behavior. I did hear about the Bryan tally and his behaviors, and I know that there was I think a document recently on the defensive side that stated that he was cleared. And one of the things that I walked it through with my audience is saying that, well, if he was cleared, that means there's an investigation. And if there's an investigation, that means there's an accusation. Now, what we do know is that these young ladies started to document. What probably happened was they reported some of this behavior, and it was investigated, and it was he said, she said type of stuff, and they were probably told to start to document things, which is why they had this tally going on, in efforts to, because of how disturbing these behaviors were, so that they could have some sort of proof, because if it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And I think that's a pretty clear path that we're seeing of escalation as well, as far as what's leading up to eventually would be that would happen on November 13th. Going back to Bryan Kohberger's 2020 writings that we spoke about just a few minutes ago, one of the things that really stood out to me was when he was referencing, well, there's 2 things. He was referencing that there might be something that could throw off investigators that was left by the killer. And another thing is to check the doors for DNA as the person was leaving. Maybe perhaps they may have left DNA behind on the door. And we find out that the back sliding glass door was left open the entire time. I strongly suspect that being the case because, well, if he's opening the door, he's touching it once, he's closing it again, then he's touching it twice, and then opening it to get out. There's at least 3 different times that he's touching it. One time after he's already exerted himself, which would probably mean that he's sweating and things of that nature. That would be a high possibility for him to leave DNA behind. Well, he points that out in his 2020 writing. Sliding glass door is open. I see a huge connection there. Are you connecting the same dots as I am?
Yeah, very much so. And I know that there's some people looking at this exact same angle. So much so they're like, I've heard a scenario where Xana goes in. Let's say she goes in, she gets her meal prepared. The DoorDash meal, goes to the bathroom, goes to her room, something, goes back into the kitchen and says, "Oh, there's somebody here." How does she know that? Because that slider's been left wide open, and there's a kill kit, something there, some kind of package, some kind of thing that raises a flag that somebody just came into my house.
A kill kit.
And maybe you're hearing noises upstairs. And yeah, so I've seen a couple different scenarios that have been discussed.
A kill kit.
Some kid having it.
A kill kit, because what a specific thing to say versus left that slider door wide open. And what comes into my mind is not bringing DNA into the car. Does he have an idea of what he thinks, even like down to a bag of right when he gets the sliding door, taking off those coveralls, throwing it in the bag, and walking
Maybe.
out?
I mean, we definitely have heard them talk about a kill kit, the Goncalves family, for some time as speculation,
Yeah.
But this is interesting because it's relating directly to.
But you know what else we just heard?
What?
He went upstairs first.
So did he say that he said he heard this scenario? Is that how he started that out?
Yeah, he's hearing different scenarios. Okay, so
Okay. Okay. Sorry. I know this is probably not like fact, but it's interesting.
Right. But he knows more, and so I'm trying to listen.
Right.
Even when he's not trying to, but he's gonna obviously only be entertaining more likely scenarios.
Exactly. That's what I'm interested in too. Or
Yeah, very
things
much
he
so.
knows of.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some people looking at this exact same thing. So much so they're like.
So I know there are some people looking at this exact scenario.
Okay.
And I know that there's some people looking at this exact same thing. So much so they're like, I've heard a scenario where Xana goes in. Let's say she goes in, she gets her meal prepared. The DoorDash meal.
Yes, Harley.
Goes to the bathroom, goes to her room, something, goes back into the kitchen and says, "Oh, there's somebody here." How does she know that? Because that slider's been left wide open, and there's a kill kit, something there, some kind of package, some kind of thing that raises a flag that somebody just came into my house. And maybe you're hearing noises upstairs. And yeah, so I've seen a couple different scenarios that have been discussed. I don't have any.
But in my opinion, like, he would only entertain that scenario knowing he went upstairs first, which I always thought he went upstairs first, but I'm just saying maybe not. But like, I don't think he would even be putting this out there as a possible scenario if he knew the order of the kill was wrong.
Right.
Good night, Justin. Oh yeah, Mav.
I've seen a couple different scenarios that have been discussed. I don't have anything concrete. I can't go there, but I think that
well, the dog barking at the exact same time that you can hear whimpering and a thud says that the glass door had to have been open. It sounds like when Dylan woke up and she heard who she thought was Kaylee, probably because of the dog going up at the same time. Is actually Xana coming downstairs. Well, Murphy would have been running with her, and it sounds like she went to Ethan and Murphy went outside. And I think when she hears somebody say, "It's okay, I'm here to help you," is that confrontation in the hallway between maybe Xana turns around to see what's going on, and there he is. And, he says that in order to surprise her, I guess.
Yeah, one of the death penalty qualifiers is that actually I'm here to help you when that individual could have just left.
Oh,
so so people who
see, he could have just left. He didn't have to kill who? Xana and Ethan. I think he's indicating a lot that they were second.
Yeah.
I feel horrible. I can't imagine, like, such strength. And I can imagine, like, after so long, of course, I just couldn't imagine. I don't care how many years pass, how many times I talked about it, being able to discuss this and not breakdown. So just a lot of strength to be able to hold it together and even discuss this.
What do you mean, Harley?
Didn't have to.
Oh, Harley is just
So,
Okay.
so people who talk all this madness about DM, she's been huge to the case, actually massive to the case, and you're going to find out that the late 911 call is actually going to be probably the final call, the final nail in his coffin. So, there's even benefits to even the most tragic parts. I mean, late call, if it leads to different evidence, then it's a good thing. And I say that knowing that my daughter wasn't going to survive what she was stabbed so many different times. So, and I can clarify
So
a
many
little bit of
different
that too.
times.
You're referring to him going back out there? Like, had she called 911 early, then he wouldn't have gone back at 9 o'clock, right?
I'm referring to a couple different things, but
Okay.
the coroner made it clear that at least 2 of the victims, it's hard for me to talk about, but they basically drowned it on their stab wounds.
Oh.
And what he's talking about is Dylan has gotten a lot of heat. And you didn't call 911, you could have saved them. Which I think it's really unfair. I do not like the time gap, but with that being said, I don't have to like the time gap, but I also think it is very unfair to put that on her. Because even if she waited 30 minutes, you could say that. I think that's very unfair. So he's making it clear, again, to reiterate the type of injuries we are talking about here. There wasn't time. And if the father of a victim can say that, and he is the one, along with the others, if anyone should feel that way, it would be them. If they are okay, then who the fuck are we to say anything else?
Mm-hmm.
Coroner made it clear that at least 2 of the victims, it's hard for me to talk about, but they basically drowned it on their stab wounds. So the blood wasn't like all over the place, or it would explain why the blood was contained.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a blanket over you and you're doing a lot of internal bleeding, your body will hold a portion of that. So
Joseph Scott Morgan's talked about
like
that
I said,
too.
everything
The
that these people are trying
blankets.
to spin into.
Go ahead.
Say Joseph Scott Morgan, the death investigator and like awesome forensics professor, has even said that you got to take into account the blankets as well that would soak in a lot of the blood, and that's interesting.
And I think he means he returned, Harlot. That's what I took from that. He returned. Why? And it was the last time documented that he'd been, and to know he got 23 times prior, and that was the last time. I think it was the returning. Now, if someone else interpret that differently, please do share. Right, Carolyn Cooper. Good night, Holly.
The place, or it would explain why the blood was contained. So if you have a blanket over you and you're doing a lot of internal bleeding, your body will hold a portion of that. So
sorry, I don't mean to pause again so quickly, but maybe you should again repeat, because if Steph wasn't here earlier.
So this interview was pre-recorded and it was sent to Shannon Gray, the Goncalves family attorney, for their review prior to it being released to ensure that they didn't violate the gag order.
So I understand, because that's been a concern of mine in the past too, Steph. But this was approved, so I would like to think that all's good.
Yeah.
Your body will hold a portion of that. So, like I said, everything that these people are trying to spin into some crazy conspiracy actually has a scientific background of why it is the way it is. And it's not Hollywood. It's not officers or a vacuum cleaner that went in there and vacuumed up stuff or whatever these crazy people want to say. That I think the vacuum cleaner is just the K-bar with one of the shirts that wrapped it around it. So you have a K-bar in your hand and you wrap a shirt around it. What does it do? It goes big and then goes down.
Yeah.
Oh,
wait, a shirt? He got a shirt?
Yes, to contain the blood dripping.
Interesting.
That's what I always thought, Harlot, is he knows Dylan saw him and no cops know nothing, and curiosity got the best of him. So that's what I took that as. But he's saying there's no fucking vacuum. What she perceived was actually the K-bar with maybe a shirt wrapped around it, which, because, unfortunately that K-bar would leave blood dripping, but if a shirt was wrapped around it, interesting.
Yeah.
You have a K-bar in your hand and you wrap a shirt around it. What does it do? It goes big and then goes down. Yeah. And I think he just seen the amount of blood. He wasn't sure if it was his. Yeah, he's blood everywhere, so he just wrapped it up and built it out of the house with trying to mitigate the trail as much as he possibly could, because he was going to that door where he had the rest of his kit.
See?
Do you think that
he was going to that door where he had the rest of the kit? He left something. He left something at the door.
Wow.
See, it's like leaking out, and he's not even intentionally. It's just kind of, before it was a theory. I know people are looking into an angle that just flew right out. A kit, meaning a bag of some sort. I'm assuming, like, you don't know what was in it, but a bag left at the door with the door wide open. So, which means he most likely entered wearing geared up, and he left probably like an open bag of some sort for him to put everything in before he even got into that car. Head to toe, he's covered, and rip it all off. Imagine like a nice sturdy bag opened, like took everything off real quick, put it in the car, and then the trunk is lined with a shower curtain, perhaps. Open it up, put that bag that contains everything in it in a lined trunk, close it, discard it.
It's like Dexter on wheels. Triple L, okay, so I think that some of the victims had blankets already over them, but very possibly could have covered them up as well. It could have gone both ways.
Talking about Maddie and Ethan.
Yeah.
So they would have been in bed, like when he attacked them. I know in our mind we don't always like realize things, but yeah, they'd be under blankets, like what would he do? Rip the blankets off first? I mean, I guess he could, but it's not, blankets actually make sense. It is, Mallory. I'm blown away by that bag. They got a lot of sheets.
Yeah, that's where he messed up, Callie.
Yep, sure did.
He was going to that door where he had the rest of his kit.
Do you think that we're going to find out in this trial what the prosecution believes he did with that knife?
I know some of the background of where they looked and what they were trying to find, and honestly, I think I just go to the simplest. Why has he got a shovel in the back of his car?
Sure.
And it's not these idiots, because there's a Kohberger out there right now thinking to themselves that they're smart. No, you're stupid. You're an idiot. It was a mini one. It wasn't very big. You don't use it for snow. So anybody who thinks he was using that for snow, you're just a moron. You don't live out here. Nobody uses a shovel like that. You shovel like that for dirt, and it has a super tip.
Oh,
so yeah. Driving around with the shovel tells me that he probably had something to do with that, because then that gives him the ability to go back and get it.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed all these.
That's for digging.
This was a fantasy for him. He planned it for a long time, and so that was going to be. The FBI were the ones that told they would be surprised about the kill kit. So it wasn't like I came up with that and I had some
the kill kit. Oh my God, there was a kill kit. It wasn't like I came up with the kill kit. It was FBI.
Wow.
Because we wanted so long answers for the total lack of DNA.
Right.
But that is the thing that would make sense, right? All these scenarios of how he could have gotten into that car without being covered. But wow, pieces are falling into place.
Wow.
They would be surprised about the kill kit. So it wasn't like I came up with that and I had some insight about this true crime stuff. I didn't know. They told me they wouldn't be surprised if he surveilled the house multiple times. Wouldn't be surprised if he snuck into the house. Whether he did or not, I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he did or he didn't. I don't know that. But I don't know that the profile that they built of this individual said that this person was going to surveil the house and be comfortable with it. Because, I mean, it's a knife. I mean, when you use a knife, it shows a certain level of
yes, Samantha,
planning and a comfort level that you're going to go in there. And these houses, people might not know this either, that these floor plans after COVID, they all went online. They put floor plans so you didn't have to ask to go see these houses. You could go online, most of these rental places, and see the whole floor plan, including this one, because this is called the Queens on the Kings Road. This is where the Queens were, because it was on Kings Road, and it was the house that for multiple generations where every kid wanted to be because of the location. Put you, as soon as you got off the campus from the football game, you were right there, so you could go drink and not be harassed. And if you wonder why 911 wasn't called, use your brain, guys. I mean, maybe you didn't go to college. You don't need to go to college to understand that. You want to get off campus and you want to have a beer with your friends. And if you got somebody who's 21 and somebody who's not 21, you better talk to the person who's 21 before you call 911. Or that's standard protocol, right? That's standard protocol, because if that six-pack in the fridge has got 2 beers and those 2 beers are in somebody's room that they should be in, now graduation, your finals are over. You're sitting in you're getting citation. Who knows what goes with that? So people can read between the lines and understand.
Scared to call because they're worried of the impact it would have on graduate. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
There's underage drinking going on. The alcohol is in the minor's room. Dylan was 20. She was the youngest, right?
Yeah, Dylan was the youngest, then Bethany, and Xana.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Mallory, the rumor that Annie apparently got from his source is that Ethan's hamstrings were cut.
Oh.
And that was one we heard really early on. And this is like prior to the affidavit coming out.
Yes.
So I haven't heard that to be confirmed, but that's what, yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. The back door, and you mentioned that maybe he'd been there before. I think everybody's seen this image where they use these stools to secure the back sliding glass door after the fact. Was it broken? Was there something wrong with it?
I've been told that all those doors do not work correctly. When I say all, that there's a lot of construction that was done around the exact same time. So maybe that was just a certain area that hadn't been developed, and then it got developed. So then those sliders are very common. So you can push the slider towards the lock and hit it, and it will pop it up. So that was well known that those sliders weren't very secure at locking. So I don't have any idea that that's what this person did, but I was told that even if you lock that slider, that would be a place where you would want to, or you're a person who's going to sneak into somebody else's home, a burglar, that would be an ideal door to try to test.
Yeah. There was a time not too long ago where Ann Taylor was talking in one of her hearings, and they were mentioning that there wasn't any DNA of the victims inside his vehicle, but they mentioned something about being sprayed all over the place. Now, I don't know if that's something that maybe CSI guys did to try to find something, or is there maybe, are you aware if they found anything in the car that could lead to it?
I'm glad you bring this up, because nobody talks about this part. So don't believe me. Go do your own search. Go research. Go to a paid version of AI. There's some AIs that have legal descriptions and libraries. Go look it up. 6 weeks in a car, that DNA is gone. Even if you leave it there, it's going to be contaminated. It's going to degrade. So they were like, don't be surprised if we don't find anything in there, because it's sitting in outdoor weather where it's going below freezing to up to 70 degrees. They literally looked at all the temperatures every single day that vehicle was outside. It wasn't garaged. So it's sitting in the baking sun, then going as cold as it possibly did. I think the coldest was something like 20 some degrees, and then the hottest it got was like 60 some degrees. But inside a car, you amplify that right on up. So yeah, this individual clean, they sprayed with something, but even if they left something there, six weeks inside of a car, it wasn't going to come back. It wasn't. At least that's how it was described to me. This stuff's not going to come back. Or don't be surprised. They would have been very surprised if they found something that was usable. They're saying, no, it could be under a carpet seal or something to protect it. It would have needed something to protect it, because if it was in direct sunlight, like literally in 24 hours, DNA can start becoming corrupt in sunlight, especially sunlight.
What I love, and thank you so much, Sin, again, that's so kind of you. Welcome the new members. But what I loved about what Steve just said, sorry, and I know it's going to be small, but he said, don't take my word for it. Go research it yourself. And I love that, because nobody should take anyone's word for it. I say this all the time about other creators. Even if you hear something I say, don't take anyone's word for it. Go and do your own research. And as soon as he said that, you want to know what I wanted to do? Ooh, actually, I'm not super familiar about, even if there was DNA, how long would it be testable? How long would it last? Like what I'm not familiar with that. So what did I want to do? I want to go look that up. I want to go research that. And I love that, because don't take my word for shit, but go and educate yourself. Don't go spitting things that you're not educated on.
Right. And saying that it could be degraded. And he also said that he did use cleaning supplies. And if you're using certain cleaning supplies to be able to confront that type of biological material, my opinion is it would have to be something that came out of a crime lab, like something that is potent enough that you can't just buy off the streets.
And
that's
Katie,
why I always sorry.
No, you're fine.
I always thought there may be some legitimacy to him getting some stuff from the WSU crime lab. There was a theory about that.
You always mention that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's been mentioning that from the beginning. But what's interesting also is they are able to determine if it's been cleaned. You know, the same thing, I think back to Letitia Stout, right? And it was a very, very much so blood spatter. It's 18 stab wounds. But they're able, when they did the Blue Star, to determine what spots have been hit with cleaning products, and so I'd be very curious to see, okay, no victim's DNA, lack of DNA in that car, but did it say anything? Did it say that there was something here, but evidence of cleaned up and just not able to determine it the same way it was an inconclusive DNA for Kohberger and others? I don't know. I'd be very curious about that.
Because that total lack thereof, everybody held on to it. And I always felt like there was something more to that.
Yep. Oh, this is so interesting. Hi, FOS.
Inside of a car. So, this stuff will probably be brought up in the trial, but I never hear anyone ever talk about, hey, this car literally drove from Washington all the way to Pennsylvania. That's a lot of exposure. I wonder if this person just cleaned it up, or if they found something, it just didn't come back as anything that was viable because it was 100% contaminated.
See, even if they found anything, but the same way underneath. Sorry, now I got to adjust myself in my lows. Okay, I got to pep up for this. Even if the same way they're testing underneath Maddie's fingernails, right? And hey, there's 3 DNAs that came back. Can't tell you whose, it's inconclusive. So Anne's wording, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but this could be the case, a possibility. Yeah, there was DNA, and yeah, there's evidence of cleanup, but could we conclusively determine it was the victims? No.
Oh my gosh. You got your like Miss Cleo hat on. You're already predicting the future here.
And now to be fair, you have to be careful with the wording, because there's been a few times where it's been stated one way, but it's come out a different way in the courtroom.
Right.
Total lack of the victim's DNA. Total lack of. Now, again, everyone means that everyone say that meant none at all. Lacking of means less sufficient, like insufficient, not as much. So total lack of, I again, I can't tell you 100% what that meant, versus we didn't hear the state ever say, well, that's not true. So I don't know if there is DNA and total lack of the victim's DNA specifically because they can't conclusively determine it to be. That's what we're talking about right now. Well, I'm curious if there was, which I'm sure there would have been DNA in the car.
Right.
But what type of DNA?
It is interesting. And I think it's good to know too that, based on the time frame and the temperatures, like the degradation of it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's what they're hinting at. There was some contamination. I do know that the FBI went through that car piece by piece. And unlike some of these people, I think they do a very good job. And I think they're very skilled at what they do. And if they didn't find anything, then there wasn't much to be found. But again, there's definitely going to be a sense of some corruption. And they did find, like you said, there were some cleaning supplies that I hope that they can actually be traced back to a certain lab. Because not everything is purchasable over the counter. There's certain things that you have to license to purchase.
Shay!
Yeah, exactly.
Shay! I can't even pause fast enough. That's what Shay's been saying, guys. So he potentially had access to certain things, given this is what he was studying. And Shay speculated that he could have took some things from the lab and used it in his own crime. And so it wouldn't necessarily be I would be traceable potentially back to the lab, right? What Steve is saying here, versus actual verifiable purchases over the counter, walking into the store and buying it, and you get a receipt. Potentially taken from the lab at school, style Breaking Bad.
I've been saying this for months, if not years, right? I'm like, there's got to be something here, because
I know
he had the access. Because remember, I was wondering, I was like, what if he took IDs of like fellow classmates that had access to that lab and was using it to go get those items to like hide like his identity.
Yes. They document everyone who's allowed to be in the lab. And he just says you have to have a specific license, right, to purchase, because it's at a certain level, right? It's the same like hospital grade disinfectant, whatever it may be. Ooh. Wow.
I'm so curious.
Oh my God.
Definitely going to be a sense of some corruption. And they did find, like you said, there were some cleaning supplies that I hope that they can actually be traced back to a certain lab. Because not everything is purchasable over the counter. There's certain things that you have to have a license to purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
So hold on. Let me have my other impact of this, my parallel impact of using high grade cleaning material, right, with cleaning products, right? Not cleaning products you could just walk in and just standard bleach. They have hospital grade stuff, you guys, and things that in a lab at that school you would specifically be working with, and you'd have to have potential IDs, right? Are you allowed to be checking this out, in the lab, using it, whatever it may be? Ooh. Right? Pickle, that would make the ID thing really make sense if he had other students' IDs, or what if a faculty ID?
Well, yeah. You never know. I just thought, like, I guess I was just thinking there had to have been more going on at WSU besides like this stuff with people having issues with him,
Yeah.
It just seemed like more. And the fact that, like, I knew WSU wasn't going to talk because of the educational laws that go with that and the information they're allowed to release. But it seemed like a like a plausible like theory. I don't know.
Oh wow, that's
The
so
only
interesting.
the only other thing I could think of is his dad was a janitor, and what if he had taken some stuff that his dad, like wherever his dad was working at, like that company was purchasing. That was the only other thing I could think of. Because like I don't really see, like, you know how like when you would go to school and like somebody would vomit and they had that vomit powder, I would never see that vomit powder anywhere else you could purchase it. It was like through certain means, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like licenses for stuff, but I think the crime lab theory thing makes a little bit more sense.
I'm just wow, man.
Oh, really,
there's
Pickle?
another case that had occurred.
Hold
I
on.
want to say the last name was Polko.
What'd Pickle say?
She said, there you go.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. That would be interesting, Pickle. Ah!
Jeez.
Over the counter, there's certain things that you have to have a license to purchase.
Yeah, exactly. There's another case that had occurred. I want to say the last name was Porco or something like that. Porco, a guy out of Rochester, New York, drove 3 hours, and he took the life of his mother or his father and his mom with an axe to the heads of both of them. And he drove 3 hours back, and when they searched his Jeep, no blood. He stood over him when he did it. Now, the reason that they believe that he was able to accomplish this, because there was no cleanup, no sign of a shower.
I remember this.
Was because he was a veterinarian tech, and at his place of business, they had I guess materials that would protect veterinarian techs during surgeries, and that's what he had worn. And he was able to drive 3 hours.
Do you remember this case?
Without getting any DNA. The only DNA that they actually got him that ended up convicting him was he went to a toll booth and he got the DNA off of the sticker, the I guess the receipt that he got from there, and so that's what ended up doing him in. But I think that there's the possibility, especially when you see that 2020 May letter final that he wrote about how what to wear so that way you don't contaminate a scene. I think we're going to see a bunch of that in his purchases, and I think that's going to be something else that does him in.
Yeah, it's just another record that they were able to pull off where, yeah, I mean, he talks about the right outfit that you would want to commit this crime in, and then they have him purchasing. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but we all know what a Dickies outfit, one of the thing, it's basically what Michael Myers wore. Yeah. So, it's I guess some people like to be lied to. They like to be manipulated and strung around. It's a bizarre thing for me, as a father. I never want that for my kids. I want my kids to think on their own and not be naive and get led astray. But maybe some people that's just not for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there are some folks, it doesn't matter. I had one guy literally tell me that because I guess there was a vehicle in Eugene, Oregon. I don't know if you remember that one that was crashed on the side of the road. Apparently that belongs to somebody at one point lived in Colorado, and the 1122 residents at one point, one of the investors had property somewhere else in Colorado. That's too much of a coincidence. That's too much. Don't worry about what BK is doing. That's all coincidence. But that car being from Colorado and somebody being from over there from Colorado, different parts, different people, everything else. It's wild, the conspiracies that they believe in. Well, Steve, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Is there anything else that you want to maybe get out, tell the world about anything?
Yes, Harlot, but he's talking about the thing that he wrote, right? Like basically like the how to commit, like it was how to handle the crime scene investigation, but it included like what the perpetrator could wear, this, that. Vomit powder? Did he say vomit powder?
I said vomit powder, and I'm telling Point of Liver not to judge me.
Judge your Point of Liver.
I'm saying, like, I never seen that stuff anywhere else but at the school. Okay. Sorry.
Vomit powder. They should have done that with the Watts case.
Thank you, Nav. Thank you.
Hold on. What Nav say?
They remember.
Homework. Yep, Pickle. Yep.
All right, Truth. I know. It's like cat litter, whatever. Just let me have one. Come on.
That's too much. Don't worry about what BK's doing. That's all coincidence. But that car being from Colorado and somebody being from over there from Colorado, different parts, different people, everything else. It's wild, the conspiracies that they believe in. Well, Steve, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Is there anything else that you want to maybe get out, tell the world about anything?
I don't know if I've heard anyone repeat the because I want to bring a little bit of clarity, because people don't realize that, like, the interviews that I do on some of the TV channels, they're pretty much live, and even if they're not live, they're not scripted in any shape or form, so we can't go into details like this. So I want to take advantage of it. On that Brian tally, his little thumbs up asshole pic. I think I figured it out. I think it's like 14 hours later, he's calling in sick for work, and that's the only day he ever called. So
he called in sick. That's a 101 no to do, Mr. Crime. Everyone knows you have to go on with your normal schedule.
Wait, he took that picture and then called in sick?
Called in sick.
So for everybody saying he's went to work, nope.
He called in sick, Shay.
Oh.
I need to go back.
Wow.
Live, and even if they're not live, they're not scripted in any shape or form, so we can't go into details like this. So I want to take advantage of it. On that Brian tally, his little thumbs up asshole pic. I think I figured it out. I think it's like 14 hours later, he's calling in sick for work, and that's the only day he ever called.
That's the only day he ever called.
He's obsessed with the crime that he did, and going through the media. This is all going to be part of his search history. You guys are all going to see it, and there's a thing. There's exclusive knowledge. If you know about a certain part of a crime before it's made general public, or maybe before it even happens, it's pretty damning. To me, there's nothing more damage. But I also thought people would change the tune when the Amazon order puts the murder weapon in his house, and his own family's like wondering what the heck's going on. And when I say family, I believe it's just one sister that was really helpful, where the other people weren't so much helpful.
Well, I mean, they're pretty specific on the March 20th to March 30th time frame for that knife purchase. Yeah, 100%.
Somebody was able to tell them exactly when that happened, even though the history had been deleted. Why do you delete this? I mean, why would you delete that? If you're this outdoor hunter, CSI, because I hear all these people, oh, he's a CIS grad. He's going to have all this weird stuff. You're not going to have knowledge of a crime, bro. You're not going to have knowledge of the crime. That is not public knowledge. You're not going to have it. I don't care. And it doesn't explain doing surveys and doing all these weird things and creeping every girl out. And the list of the red flags is what really frustrates me, because this guy had been harassing girls all the way back to high school. We've talked to people all the way to high school. Like the girl that was literally like, he's obsessed with me. And it was like extremely embarrassing. I'd walk into the classroom and everyone was like, is he going to be that awkward weirdo that stares at you all day long? And so this goes all the way back to school, and they've interviewed and talked to all these different people. So it frustrates me that
you fell off.
Every time we hit after 2.5 hours, it always drops me. Do you ever notice that? And I stay on the same screen, and it always does that.
Baby, come back. But you came back very quickly.
I did come back. Okay, wait. I wanted to hear what just happened. Hold on. He said that that something about the search history, knowing like things before the crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what else?
Here, I'll go all the way back to that, because
I'm sorry.
No.
I was really into it. I was like, are you effing kidding me? Okay, the sister. It was the sister. One sister. Okay,
here we go.
Hours later, he's calling in sick for work, and that's the only day he ever called. So he's obsessed with the crime that he did, and going through the media. This is all going to be part of his search history. You guys are all going to see it, and there's a thing. There's exclusive knowledge. If you know about a certain part of a crime before it's made general public, or maybe before it even happens, it's pretty damning. To me, there's nothing more damage. But I also thought people would change the tune when the Amazon order puts the murder weapon in his house, and his own family's like wondering what the heck's going on. And when I say family, I believe it's just one sister that was really helpful, where the other people weren't so much helpful.
Well, I mean, they're pretty specific on the March 20th to March 30th time frame for that knife purchase. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, somebody was able to tell them exactly when that happened, even though the history had been deleted. Why do you delete this? I mean,
sister.
Ooh.
Sister, can you hear me?
Wow. Which one? I wonder which one.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. And mad props to Daniel. This is such a great interview. Wow, man. This is insane.
No, great info.
This is insane.
Harley, we wouldn't know that, nor am I trying to give medical advice. Please seek a doctor. This channel is not giving medical advice at all. So please speak to a professional. Exactly, Harlot. Exactly.
Why would you delete that? If you're this outdoor hunter, CSI, because I hear all these people, oh, he's a CIS grad. He's gonna have all this weird stuff. You're not gonna have knowledge of a crime, bro. You're not gonna have knowledge of the crime. That is not public knowledge. You're not gonna have it. I don't care. And it doesn't explain doing surveys and doing all these weird things and creeping every girl out. And, the list of this, the red flags, is what really frustrates me, because this guy had been harassing girls all the way back to high school. We've talked to people all the way to high school, like the girl that was literally like,
he looked something up before 911. I think you're right, Bickle. And then that is what he probably sent. No scanner, no vandal alert, no nothing. And so he did a fucking typeroo. I want to know what specifically it was. And then he did a drive-by. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah, I agree, Truth. I'm glad that they got this all squared away.
he's obsessed with me, and it was like extremely embarrassing. I'd walk into the classroom and everyone was like, is he going to be that awkward weirdo that stares at you all day long? You know, and so this goes all the way back to school, and they've interviewed and talked to all these different people. So it frustrates me that you can harass people at school, and because of the way the system is, you kind of go unnoticed. You kind of are able to pull it off because nobody wants to drag those victims into a court case. Nobody wants to do a police report, say this girl is absolutely petrified of this boy, and she's crying at night and all that kind of stuff. No, they basically remove the two and then pretend like it never happened. And that he had been removed from so many different situations because some girl came forward all the way up to WSU, all the way to WSU. He was still getting away with it, still being able to harass these girls. And, you know, it's a very frustrating thing to see how many failures led to your daughter's death. Yeah. And it's
wow.
But we're working on.
I wonder what other pattern of behavior they have on him.
We can pass them along.
I'm sure a lot, and that is what Anne is, like I said, fighting. We're not just talking about one creepy eye, he was staring at you. Nah, there's clearly a long history, and she does not want that in the courtroom.
That's scary, though, to think that others were, I'm sure they're not talking, but to think that if they were, say somebody was being harassed by him to that degree, to think, wow, that could have been me, it's sad.
It is.
Awesome. That try to help another family from having to go through a BK type, because unfortunately, this is probably going to lead. I mean, that Georgia kid was a fan of his, the Georgia school shooter. I don't know his name. Gray.
Yeah, I remember he called himself a pro-burger.
So it's already happening. So
that.
People see why I'm on the camera and why I'm talking about the death penalty and the firing squad. It's not that I'm into this stuff and I ever would have talked about it. It's just I know there's fans and trying to save another family in another school and another place of business from dealing with somebody like this.
That's true.
Dreams of Gander. He literally wrote about how he just felt like people were sacks of flesh. I mean, everything this guy did, and to think that some people are still following a narrative that he has been all set up. Like, who set you up when they don't even know who you are? No, that's another way.
Yes.
you're gonna plant somebody's DNA and they're not in CODIS? What are you, stupid?
Yeah.
And there's criminals all around your community that you could literally plant that and they'd be arrested and never see a day of light and it'd be over and done with. Nobody would even question it. But you're gonna go after this PhD guy who you're gonna have to do this whole IgG thing to. It's gonna spend weeks working on it. It doesn't even make sense. Who sets up somebody like that? Yeah. So I appreciate you giving an audience and helping set the table straight and help bringing out as much truth as we possibly can. I always say go to Idaho's webpage, go look at the court records, go through it. Don't take my word. Don't take Daniel's word. Go look yourself. Verify everything that you hear, and hopefully this summer we can get this case over with, and you'll see it play out, and it's going to end. I know exactly how it's going to end.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I have a strong suspicion on how it's going to end as well. Knowledge of the crime. I mean, there was a late 911 call. He may have seen somebody. Is it possible that he made a search during the time before the 911 call came out?
He felt very confident to return to that scene at 9 o'clock, right?
Yep.
I wonder why he felt so confident.
It's true.
Oh my God, no way.
Holy shit.
No way, Shay. No way.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yikes.
What would he have typed in? What would he have typed in?
I don't know.
I'm trying to think, and sorry, because what a shit
quadruple murder.
Right? I'm like, listen to me react by, but like I'm
like I don't know, Moscow quadruple murder.
Right, like what could he have possibly typed in to try to pull up those results? So the late 911 call could have put the nail in the coffin. What did he search? Even down to, let's even look at the last end of the spectrum. 911 call being placed, was he trying to pull up a scanner or something? Oh my God. There already is a gag order, FOS. There already is a gag order, hon. There's been a gag order.
Yeah, this has already been reviewed by Shannon Gray, their attorney. And Shannon is bound to the gag order, more so as a lawyer than the families.
Right. Oh.
The truth thinks it could be Bosco murder because there hadn't been one in 7 years. What does the chat
Anything
think?
like that would be fucked. Oh my God.
Wow.
Prior case knowledge. Oh my God. Sorry. I'm like, again, they're like, what do we just have to sit here and listen to you go gasp? Yes. I'm sorry. I'm just so, what the fuck did he search?
I'm so curious.
Oh my goodness. He saved the biggest bomb for the end of the interview.
Wow. I mean, he danced around it quite a bit. He came out and kind of said it now.
He is screwed. Do you remember how many arguments we used to have about the damn PCA? That's majority of what they have. Majority of that PCA was written before they knew it was even Bryan. Like, what?
Right.
Oh,
And everybody said that was a very detailed PCA, given other law enforcement that have, written many were like, that's a stellar PCA.
he's fried to a crisp as far as the evidence. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh God, I gotta hear it again. I'm sorry.
Go through it. Don't take my word. Don't take Daniel's word. Go look yourself. Verify everything that you hear, and hopefully the summer we can get this case over with, and you'll see it play
I
out.
have the chills.
And it's going to end. I know exactly how it's going to end.
Yeah, no, I have a strong suspicion on how it's going to end as well. Knowledge of the crime. I mean, there was a late 911 call. He may have seen somebody. Is it possible that he made a search during the time before the 911 call came out?
He felt very confident to return to that scene at 9 o'clock, right?
Yep.
I wonder why he felt so confident.
It's true. That is true. Those were one of the things that boggled my mind, for a while now. It's like he was able to go back. He went back. I mean, the scene could have been discovered at any point. The camera could have been set up. And it could have been documenting cars that were driving by at any point. And he went back. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on. Maybe after this is all over, if I can get you back on and we can talk about your experience there, then we can get you on about some other things that don't have to do with true crime. Maybe. We've had our conversations with other stuff as well.
I got you, man. Yeah, you're the kind of guy that you're my neighbor. We would probably shoot the shit and catch up and hang out and have a couple beers or in a barbecue. And those are the type of people that I hang out with and have an association with them.
I like to barbecue too.
Nothing like BK.
Yeah, I like to barbecue.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I mean, this guy, he's just seeing that picture that he took, that selfie, it makes you mad. I mean, mad is just not even a strong enough word. Angry. There's a lot of things. Just knowing what he just did, and
knowing that all those times he got away with it through the school and all that thing, he finally felt like he become the master of his own demons, and it was all in that photo. He really thought he was gonna get away with it. And so much so he went to the crime scene, returned to the crime scene. So I don't want to hear people say that he wouldn't have made those mistakes. He's still compulsive. He's still a freaking self-absorbed ass. So he wanted to go see what he did. He wanted to see chaos. He didn't see it, but I wouldn't be surprised that he returned to the crime scene because he wasn't a robot. He wanted to be a robot. He tries to act like he's one up on with his ASD and all this stuff, but he's very much human, and he made human mistakes, and it's all going to come out. And like I said, I want enough information to come out to where when this conviction's over and done with, these trolls just go and find another case to talk about, and we can go back to normal, and we never have to deal with this stuff anymore. I've already told my family once we get to the death penalty, we'll step away. We don't need to do any interviews. We don't need to be involved in it anymore. And I don't even want to worry about it at that point. I just know he's locked up with 23 and 1. That's good enough for me. And if it takes 20 years, 30 years, it's not my problem. I've done as much as I possibly can as a father, and but I don't want it to just become my identity. We have to go fishing, and we got to go hang out with our kids and our grandkids and put this behind us.
Amen, brother. Well, you have yourself a safe week, and we'll be talking soon. And I'll probably be seeing you out there in Boise once this thing gets going.
And that's it, guys. And that is the interview. Just about an hour and 40.
Okay. That hit me in my feels at the end there, because that's got to be a struggle even to have to say that, you can't let it become your identity, but Lord fucking knows, of course it is. You'll never be able to move on, but you got to try your best. And I can imagine putting on a show. And I hope they find a way to move on, but like hearing it, I can imagine there ain't no way as a parent you could ever move on, but to do your best to keep it together for your other kids and your grandkids. And that's admirable, but that hits me in my feels, because how the hell are you supposed to? How the hell are you supposed to?
And they've had at least 2 grandchildren born since Kaylee's death,
Yes.
And they have other children that are getting older that were in high school and now going off to college. And I can't imagine that for them.
What a phenomenal interview. That truly was.
That was good. I'm glad we watched it all and didn't just pick little parts.
It was not possible to pick little parts when it was all like it was
There's so much.
I'm just shocked.
Oh, I believe you,
learning
Jamie.
how, yeah, Jamie, yeah, of course, that's what I'm saying. It hit me in my feels because I could imagine that's not possible. I wished that is possible, and I hope they get to the best place they could be. But I have a feeling that's just learning to cope with it and putting on your strong face for the rest of your kids and grandkids, which is admirable. Um,
Hmm.
but how the hell are you supposed to?
I
You
think
know,
it's like I think this is the chapter that they need for some closure to be able to heal, not 100%, but be able to find a way to keep moving on, like Jamie said.
yeah, otherwise, well, I think he hit the nail on the head with many things. And the truth is that there are these creators uh, that even when people will inform them, hey, wait a second, and not in a mean way. Well, that's not true. We know in this document it says there is this time, right? Or whatever it may be. And those comments get deleted and they pretend that they don't see it because it's not that they truly in their heart believe it. Once in a while there might be a case, like where the less likely scenario may be something that you just feel like there's something wrong here. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the creators who realize there is a high demand for opposition. And there are those creators are the ones who are constantly pushing those conspiracy theories. And no, the Wade wives actually don't come in my mind at all. Those are not. That's why it's kind of frustrating otherwise. Is that those aren't even true crime people. Like they don't know the court process at all. Even though a lot of people, even in the true crime community, don't. But they just come in off of attraction. No, there are literal channels that I can name 5 right off the top of my head that they're always going to take the opposite of the mainstream narrative or whatever it may be, because there's, even if you don't align with it, you're gonna watch it because it's so shocking. And what, are you kidding me? No, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And in their heart, they don't even believe it. Versus you make a shit ton of money and a shit ton of following going with that stuff. And I can't imagine as the families to know, and they've had this information, and they still don't have all the information. Um, and to sit back and watch everyone just run with shit. And Bryan is innocent. He's innocent until proven guilty, but like, how are we going to deny what's right in front of our face? And that's why I'm really excited for the next episode, because there's um, documents that we have to go through, and there's some interesting things that I've heard are in those documents, and I really need to know what's in them. I really need to go to defense attorney with a guilty client, I guess. Well, and there are people who, and when did Anne say she believes wholeheartedly Bryan's innocent? I know that she said her client has expressed from day one he's innocent.
I think the innocence I heard early on was in 2023. And then it seems like, because that's when it seemed like she would like be near him or touch him more. And then it seems
Mhm.
like that's kind of tapered off. And it's, he, he hasn't been, you know, he hasn't been convicted yet, or that kind of saying.
Not in the general public. No, that's true. But I do believe in due process, and I do believe, everyone deserve, like, I'm gonna wait for the evidence. And I've always advocated, I am leaning towards guilty. I'm leaning, but I'm not gonna say 100% anything until we're in that, well, I'm not gonna be in the courtroom, but until we could see evidence be put out in the courtroom and make your arguments. I want to hear both sides. And if for some reason it turns around in that courtroom where something doesn't add up and Anne drops a bomb and it points in a different direction, I'll go with the evidence. I'm not 100% nothing, but it seems like people are 100% he is innocent and are very confirmation biased.
Right.
Personally believe he was 100% way after she would have known better. I don't remember that. Like, why don't I remember that? Yeah, Luna's human. Absolutely, there could be. Especially with a gag order.
I kind of think that maybe there is a belief in the innocence, because I always had this feeling that maybe he had tampered with some of the metadata to try to prove his innocence, like whether it was pictures of him being out stargazing or something of the sort. Like, I mean, okay, sure, he has a cloud forensics background. He wasn't able to obviously cover his tracks everywhere, but I doesn't mean that he wouldn't attempt to try to, lead people in a different direction. And maybe some of that evidence at first and believe was true, but when you get your experts looking into it, could that possibly have changed her mind? I mean, her job is to ensure that his constitutional rights are not being, impeded on.
And she's got her job to do.
And Harlot, I feel like it's maybe familiar, but I really don't just remember it. And maybe I don't know why. Like, because I remember it was the other live, it was mentioned, and I second guessed myself, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'm just not remembering it. But now that it's being brought up again, that's why I asked, because I'm like, wait a second, when did this happen? I genuinely don't remember.
Okay, I do recall that. I just can't remember which hearing. It's been a while.
How did she say it? Like, yeah, what does anyone remember how she said it?
Jamie's saying she said he's 100% innocent right now.
Yeah, meaning innocent before proven guilty. It was very early on. But see, that's why Anne plays with words. She's very good at it. That's what makes her a good lawyer, right? So by saying he is 100% innocent right now is true for every defendant prior.
The May 2023 hearings, Charlotte?
I'm going to have to go back and find that for the next live.
Yeah, I'm curious too. It's been a while, man.
Right. Well, and it's information overload too. Like, there's been a lot with this case, but that feels specifically like something I should remember, but for some reason I don't. She said she believes in his innocence. She said it emphatically, like, I personally, look at her, I personally believe he's 100% innocent. She lied, in my opinion.
I'm looking it up now. I can't take it.
Oh my God. Okay. So here is the smidge I heard regarding because the motions that we're going to go through, which we're going to have to do another live this week, so I'll talk to you about whatever day. But in these documents that were filed, I believe, and I did not look into it because I didn't want to spoil it. Okay. But you guys may know about it. But in the next Idaho Live, we're going to go through these documents that were filed, and I think it is the defense has an expert, and the expert is claiming that and correct me if I'm wrong, if there's that there's likely more than one murder weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And is it more than one killer?
Oh, their theory on that? Yeah.
I'm very eager to hear that. But what I want everyone to remember, though, is just because it's stated doesn't make it true. That is why the experts get on the stand. And one expert is there to, the same way Cy Ray as an expert can state this, and you can have your own expert rebuttal it, And so just because it is stated doesn't mean, yep, that's solid, that's gold, that's, you have to wait. I remember that hearing, though. I remember that hearing.
It was in May of 2024, definitely.
She was right. Yeah,
and Even got a JLR tweet to prove it.
What does it say?
Okay, hold on. I'll tell you what it says. Of course, it's JLR. It says, hold on. It says Ann Taylor 100% lied to the world when she said that Bryan Kohberger is innocent. That's JLR, and he has a picture of Ann and Bryan together,
No.
smiling.
I always imagine JLR as like the movie Up, the cartoon. I just imagine him as like this guy in a house floating with balloons attached because he just appears everywhere. I don't know how he appears there so quickly, but every time I think of him, I think of like Up, just a house with balloons and he just pops down wherever the fuck he needs to be next. He could be live right now and be like, all right, we're in San Diego and we're covering this shooting in the street, and then in an hour from now, hey, we're in Jersey. And it's like, how the fuck did you get there? Like it just happened 5 minutes ago. How are you there?
Well, and also to say that like some of the places like he travels, like there's not even airports nearby where he makes it. Like
I'm telling you, he
especially like near
balloon.
when he was like in Texas doing some of the border coverage, I was like, I know there's not an airport nearby there. How fast did he get there?
I don't watch JLR like that, okay? But I'm telling you, like, I'll see the thumbnails and shit. And it's like, how are you there? It was like literally this just hit the news 8 minutes ago. You were just in another state. How are you live streaming from there? I don't know how.
Well, no, I remember whenever I was like shocking because it was right as remember Carly Russell?
Yes.
He was there like on the ground, like immediately.
She was still in the back of like this van with her like, oh my god, that was something else.
With her Cheez-Its.
Yeah, with her Cheez-Its. And he was like, we're outside of her house, where there's a family birthday party. And it's like, oh my god, I don't know how he does it. I am not a JLR fan at all. But I will give the props of he's very good as far as being boots on the ground, because that can't be easy to jump that's his whole lifestyle, and so even though I don't personally like him at all or his coverage, he's very committed as far as boots on the ground, and that part I will respect, that little part.
Well, he decided that he wanted to go back to Dedham for the Karen Reed 2.0 trial, and Turtle Boy and his girlfriend Meredith and them trolled his ass right back this last week. It's like crazy. But
JLR using the Large Hadron Collider. Do you know what that is?
No, what is that? What is that?
The Large Hadron Collider is CERN, and they're blasting together. CERN, and it's the world's largest.
I know what CERN is.
Right. And so they're blasting the particles together, creating mini black holes. And so basically, like, he's going through they're shooting JLR. Boom! At the speed of light. At the speed of light, it shoots so yeah, that was funny. I was using the Hadron Collider and getting shot at the speed of light. That is funny as fuck. That's funnier than Up. That is so much funnier than Up.
I know people give him so much crap, but he had some like really good coverage, like on the ground in Idaho when this first started, like just getting to see the area,
Yeah.
But my favorite is, I don't know why, guys. I won't watch like a full JLR live normally, but I like the beginning when he's like, come on in, guys. I love the beginning of his live where he's like, come on in. He cracks me up.
Stop being very chilly. Staples dumpster.
Oh yeah, the dumpster dive in. Oh yes.
I found this randomly. That was Idaho too. I found this randomly in the fucking dumpster. This tape that happens to hold these interviews. Are you kidding me? That's why I don't have respect for the creators like that. Because no, you did not. No, you did not find this fucking. What kind of tape was that? It's like a tape cassette. That happened.
He went dumpster diving behind the
He
Staples
was
in
randomly
Moscow.
dumpster diving. He happened to find a cassette. What's on this cassette? He happened to have the cassette player, and bam! These mind-blowing breaking news interviews that we're not supposed to know.
It was a Daily Mail reporter, his cassettes
Yeah, how the fuck
that somehow got dumped behind the Staples.
that JLR happened to be diving in makes total sense. Makes total sense. I don't know how people believe that shit. He's tearing through space and time. Because that is how fast he'll fucking appear. It's like, how did you get there? Oh my god. So I fully expect him to be. I would love to go just even for a day. But I anticipate it's going to be packed initially, packed at the end, but somewhere in the middle, for it to trickle out a bit, because it's 3 months.
Yeah. I don't know, Carter, I think that she brought out the good in him. I think that she has more of a voice of reason with him. That's just my opinion.
I literally don't watch him. I'm just going by thumbnails. Like, because he's always pointing to something. It's always the same thing that I at least see, and it's him just pointing with the face. And he's somewhere else. He's probably somewhere else from the time we started this conversation. Okay, he's just there. No, the trial starts in August.
I actually went back and watched his coverage probably a few months ago when he went to Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. And him and Magnolia were going around and they were at the house and then they were interviewing people. It was really interesting. I hadn't sat and watched one in a while, but I wanted to see like what they dug up around Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. It was kind of interesting.
I don't know if he's gotten better. Like I said, I've never watched him. I think the one thing I've only watched was the alleged tapes he found in the dumpster. But I see him come up on like my feed all the time, or someone else reviewing it, so I see those thumbnails and I'm like, how? Like, how? So if anything, like I said, that I just give props to is the fact that he is boots on the ground and he will jump around, and that's awesome to be able to do. Not everyone's able to do that. Most people aren't able to do that. Was him howling at I told you. She Googled JLR, and the first thing that came up was him with that pointer finger, man, and him at Fenway Point. Wow. I'm telling you, every time, he uses chat's portal.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh, he'll definitely be in Idaho. The only thing that I know is that
I see what he's talking about.
Do you?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Oh my god, hold on.
All right, I just sent it to you.
Hold on, I gotta show you guys. This is exactly what I meant. This is precisely what I was talking about, okay? I think he just like cuts that photo out and just puts it on a new place or something. I don't know, because every time it's this is what I see.
You're gonna point it up.
How did you guess? How are you there again? I told you. That's the exact look after he's pointing to someplace new, and
and I think that's like, I don't know, for me, like that's like one of the the typical girl kind of poses that we do.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah. Next is going to be the duck lips with the peace sign. Jesus. He's just there. Live. And that's what it is too. Yeah, I'm live. I'm here. I'm on the ground. It's like, how are you there?
Well,
He
you know,
must
he's
have
out there.
lives.
Well, he's supposed to be out there for the Kernodle 2.0, but he keeps getting pushed out.
Pinky looking a little janky, but that's okay. I swear, if one day I see him live, like live in the field, just somewhere out in the world, like just,
I'm surprised you didn't see it when you were down there
I
for the
know,
Rex Humerman.
no. But
Speaking of,
I
I
really
watched
didn't
that
want
new
to see him anymore.
documentary,
Yeah, did you?
and I did. I really hope you cover it fully when it comes out, because I'm just like, oh.
I really want to go to Rex's. I don't know. I have no idea when it is, but they just identified Peaches, and yeah. It's so weird that you said that, because I was just driving past the lake, and I was talking with my dad about. He was explaining to me when they found her body and stuff, and it was just so eerie, because that specific lake they only found part of her because all the water had disappeared, and he remembered seeing all like the police and everything, and they just assumed that they had found like guns maybe or something and then come to find out it was Peaches.
Oh, that's so sad. Yeah, I did watch the new documentary on it, and it really kind of came full circle, because I watched the very first one before they ever indicted Rex, and followed it with you and ATS, and then I've just been kind of waiting to see what else is going to come out from it. But they did a good job on their docuseries, definitely highlighting a lot of the corruption,
Yeah.
which needed to be said in a form outside of just interviews. But it's really good.
Now I want to know what it's called.
What's what called the new one? Okay, let me tell you. Sorry, I got it. You get it.
I went down the Ruby Frank rabbit hole. I really enjoyed that miniseries. And then there's the Piper Raquel one that Netflix put out that I didn't really know all of that was going on with Piper Raquel and her mom. Hi,
Oh
Thevie.
yeah.
Oh, Thevie, we're at the end of the live, but I'm telling you, got to go back, because this was well, if you haven't heard of this case, then it probably wouldn't be bombshells for you, but like it is. He has a couple of recent attacks. I want to check this guy. Definitely let me know what it is, Dog Defender, because that's local to me. And I had gone out to Rex's house. God.
Oh, sorry. The new one is called Gone Girls, the Long Island Serial Killer.
Yes. Netflix, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a three episode part of that series, because they had one before that was the Gone Girls, style, but this one is the Long Island Serial Killer. So it puts together a lot of the missing pieces that we've been hearing about, and I think they have a lot on him, Melissa, more so than I thought.
Yeah. The Sarah case is great. I would ask what people's opinions are of that, if he's Peterson's guilty or not in the staircase. That is a very interesting one for me, because
I think it's an owl.
You align with the owl.
I align with the owl.
Just because of the markings?
Even more. Like, I really could see it being the owl. And I know that sounds nuts, but I don't think Scott did it.
Very similar, Thevie. Very similar to the sorority. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, he definitely took an Alfred plea for a reason.
There are times where I'm like, oh my God, he's totally guilty. And there were times where I'm like, damn, that really looks like an owl. Like that. Those
Doesn't it?
from a talon. Yeah. You believe the owl too?
I think the owl is very plausible.
The less skirt on the stand with that case was a treat. It was like, what's his name in OJ? What was his name? He was very interesting. Cato on the stand
yeah.
for OJ. He was very interesting. I want to gotta go back over OJ. But that's why I've been enjoying doing the Casey series with Allie, because it's going into Kohberger. We say it all the time when we're listening to it. Like, you think you have all this, all this evidence, and it seems, but you really never know which way a jury's going to go. And that's why we're trying to observe how the prosecution plays a role, how the defense plays a role, and how the performance. And I don't like to say performance, but Jose Baez ran that courtroom. He powered that courtroom. He didn't just say something, he showed you it. He made you remember it. The prosecution had the facts, they had the evidence, but they didn't dominate the courtroom. Their presence didn't dominate the courtroom. And so I think that will come into play with Anne. I think Anne is similar, where she will keep the jury intrigued, and it's not so much what you have versus how you're presenting it. And I hope that that's not the case, but we're watching in her trial to kind of pick up on, how did this go south,
Right.
Yeah, it's a delicate dance.
It is.
Smells, you think so?
What do they say, Peterson?
Yeah, sure is now. Sure is. But all right, so next episode, I'm not sure what day we'll do it, guys. We'll let you know, but we're going to go through those documents that are posted. And I cannot wait, especially if Anne is trying to introduce an expert that is going to put forward the possibility. I want to know what a second weapon, because that's been speculated from the beginning, but I have never seen any evidence to indicate that. So I'm really curious what they're going to say.
Oh, me too. Me too. Thank you for having me up, and I'm going to jump down.
Okay, well, I love you, and thank you for joining.
I love you too. Good night.
Good night. All right, guys, so thanks for hanging out. I'm not sure yet. Mallory, I know we're doing, I think, Casey on Allie's channel, so I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing here yet. Maybe Letitia. Probably Letitia. I'll let you know. But thank you all for hanging out. Thank you all if you are a member, if you're not a member, and just hanging out, watching. I appreciate you all so much. I hope we all have an amazing rest of your night, and I will see you guys tomorrow.